Let's go ahead and call this meeting, this joint City County Commission special meeting to order for Monday, April 17th, 3 p.m. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for tuning in. And we've got a nice agenda here. We can all learn a few things and get some good work done. Madam Chair?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you. I think we will both have to move forward with adopting our agenda. So if, I guess you want me to go first?
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Well, we're glad to see everyone's faces here. Thank you all for being here. Most of you have to be here, I think, but hopefully some of you also want to be here. And with that, can I call for a motion to adopt our agenda?
So moved.
Excellent. Do I have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt our agenda. Any comments from the public on the agenda? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. And I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Do we have a motion to adopt the city agenda?
So moved.
All right, and a second? All right, a motion and a second. No discussion on that. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have agendas.
All right.
Madam Clerk?
The first item on the city's agenda is 2023-373, Community Development Financial Institution, with the recommendation that the city and county housing department staff provide housing priorities and initiatives.
You missed something there.
Sorry, that was the housing update.
Just kidding. The City Commission and Board of County Commissioners hear a presentation from ViStar on community development financial institutions and take action deemed necessary.
Very good.
Thank you.
Why don't y'all come up and tell us all about how ViStar is going to help our city. Welcome.
Thank you for having us. My name is Heather Horovitz, and this is Chris Bucas. We're from ViStar Credit Union. We're here to talk a little about our strategic priorities and share a little knowledge around new market tax credits and hopefully get you excited about them and answer any of your questions. And then we'll share our contact at the end. If there's any further questions, we're happy to be available. Great. So this is just a little information about us and our priorities. This was posted, I believe, so I won't read through it. But we look to invest in the community, and our priority is to build healthy communities, and it's really core to our culture as a credit union, and just really excited to be in Gainesville sharing that with you. Sorry. Okay. So new market tax credits is a very complicated kind of concept, and we're going to keep it really high level. The new market tax credit program was just designed to incentivize investment in distressed communities. So it helps make projects pencil that might not otherwise. Over the past 15 years, they've proven to really be an effective way to target development in distressed communities, and they're a really important part of the capital stack for these commercial projects.
Hi, my name is Chris Bucas. So I've been involved in the new market tax credit industry for about 16 years, so quite a long time, almost from the beginning. So I've seen a lot of projects come to fruition. The best thing about new markets and what everyone should think about when they think first about new markets is federal dollars coming to your community. And that means roughly 20 to 25% of a project cost that you potentially could get via new market tax credit. So $10 million project, between 2.5 million and 2 million of these tax credits will go to the development or the project at construction close. So you get it up front, which is great because most are reimbursed or back end. This is where you get all the funding up front. So that's number one. They were developed really because in a lot of the low income census tracts, not enough equity existed. And so oftentimes owners had 10% equity, but they didn't have 30% like a bank would require, right? And so new markets was to backfill that 20% to get them to a marketable rate and to get banks interested in the program. It also is to attract and develop neighborhoods that are with it less expensive. So to purchase property, less expensive in low-income communities versus other communities. So let's figure out a way for private industry to invest in these low-income communities. It also has a focus on creating jobs for low to moderate income people. So the crux of new markets is really about the low to moderate income person and how does this project or this whether it's, a university project, a hospital, an industrial site, how does that impact our local community and the low-income people there? So it's very important whenever we're evaluating to understand that that's the demographic that this program is supposed to help. They're supposed to create living wage jobs. Every group that has new market tax credits will tell you, one of the first questions, benefits, and is this a living wage job? And we'll go look at, whatever the living wage job is for Gainesville today, and then they'll make that determination. So we're really focused on low-income people. And then providing goods and services. So think your hospital, your healthcare, your dental facility. New markets is used frequently to offset the cost of those types of facilities to be built, both in rural, urban, and I live in Kansas City, and we've gone as far out as 5 hours to our west to build a critical access hospital using tax credits to serve that population. I kind of already went through this, so I'm not going to get in the weeds about it, but it's, depending on the market, and we're just getting out of kind of a negative market in the tax credit world, and prices are starting to rise. It's now between 20 and 25% again. During the downturn, it was around 15% equity that you would get. What New Markets is, it's a soft loan that's forgivable at the end of the 7-year period. So if you're receiving it, you get it at the construction close. It is from a group that has a new market tax credit allocation, and there's a 7-year period, which is the compliance period for the tax credits. At the end of that 7 years, the loan is essentially forgiven by the underlying project and doesn't have to be paid back. That's what we say here. We just call it convert. We convert the loan to equity. And really what it does is increases your underlying borrower, whoever that may be, their amount of equity they have in the project. So less bank debt, less borrowed debt, more federal subsidy.
So new markets have actually had a huge impact in Florida already. 216 projects, facilities, businesses have been financed in Florida. 2.9 million total project financed. 16,000 permanent full-time jobs. Nearly 15,000 temporary construction jobs. 6.8 million square feet of real estate renovated or new construction. So we really have seen an incredible impact in our state. And looking specifically at our areas.
It's the next one.
Yeah, do you want to?
Yeah, I can go through this. So right before we get to actual projects, because what people really like to hear about is projects, like what's really happened with this program, right? So these are the common project types. So community facilities, think nonprofit. What's your nonprofit, your YMCA, early childhood learning, mental health. Charter schools are also a big thing. Some states don't have a lot. We have a lot in Kansas City. It sounds like you guys have a lot here too. Industrial manufacturing, so whatever that widget is, and I say importance of a widget because in our area there's a lot of people talking about the CHIPS Act and the semiconductor industry, and there's a lot of money that's flowing out to communities, so people are very interested in that. And using new markets to help further subsidize those projects. I say retail, really that is mostly grocery, I'll say, a lot of it's grocery. I've done 4 grocery stores now, so that's kind of a niche of mine. Mixed use projects, so think really good tenant on the bottom, and then some residential up top, even though new markets is not really pegged to be a housing solution, it's really a low income or economic development solution, community development solution. And healthcare, whether that's federally qualified health centers, university hospitals, all of that has been used around the country frequently to help universities, especially with these clinics. And especially, they've done a lot of dental clinics actually, because a lot of their patients are low income people that can't afford care. So that is typically, any sort of related healthcare as well.
Projects that you might be familiar with in Jacksonville, North Florida School of Special Education, Feeding Northeast Florida, the KIPP School, and then the Jesse Ball DuPont Center. And then here in Gainesville, the Cade Museum, and then Hitchcock. Anyway, Hitchcock. You all know it. So really, really huge impact. Actually not huge, Florida is an underserved state, but huge opportunity. And we've seen that this concept's been proven and successful in North Florida, but absolutely a lot of opportunity to bring more funding to Central North Florida.
So the new market program is census tract based. So if you're eligible for the tax credits, you have to be in a census tract that has a high poverty rate and is considered highly distressed by the CDFI, by the Community Development Financial Institution Fund, which is basically the Treasury Department. Those distressed census tracts are 20% minimum poverty, but really they're looking for 30% poverty or higher. AMI, the area median income, somewhere between 80 and less. And then, or if your average unemployment is 1.5 times the national average. And so also if it's considered a rural project by census, then it's also a quote rural project, which adds an additional benefit to the underlying project from a compatibility standpoint or marketability, I should say, standpoint. And the typical project size is minimum size about 5 million. So there is a cost of capital, there's a cost to close these things, whether it's 5 million or it's 20 million. It's a lot of times the same cost, so the bigger the project, the better benefit will get driven to it. Oh, and here's the map of everything in red here is eligible. Most of Gainesville is eligible. And I should have zoomed in on that. I can update and send an updated one just on your city. But everything in red there, the yellow is just distressed, and some of those are further eligible to be red, which means you can use new market tax credits. So I don't want to confuse everyone. That's why you hire a professional, say, okay, this is in the area or not. That's what I got there. Okay, so project impacts. These are some of the things that groups that have these new market tax credits look for. So this is based on what pretty much everyone in the country is looking for, and sometimes they target certain criteria and they just really focus on them. Some are more kind of utility players and they'll fund whatever type of project. So if we're looking at industrial manufacturing, they want to see 5 to 10 jobs per $1 million of allocation. It's also dependent on the city, location, and a lot of other things. If they assist minority women-owned businesses, obviously located in a low-income community, offers flexible below market rate leases. So some groups have used this to subsidize infrastructure costs on like an industrial park, which effectively lowers the cost for the park, so the barrier to entry for somebody is less. Or the first building, we've used them to, I call it the pioneering building. So like the pioneering building of a multi-phase industrial park. Sometimes we'll use new markets to put in the infrastructure and that first building just to prove the concept. So then after that, they get filled up pretty quickly. And I have experience in multiple places like that where we did that. And now there's 9 400,000 square foot buildings sitting there. But we were able to subsidize initially all the infrastructure costs. Healthy and affordable food options. So I love food. I love grocery stores. I fell into this niche kind of randomly, and so I've done a bunch of grocery stores in Louisiana and then in Kansas City. So they're very hard to finance just overall. In a previous life, I worked at LISC. If you guys know, Local Initiative Support Corporation out of Jacksonville. I was deputy director of the Kansas City office, and I was very into grocery stores and food deserts. It's a huge focus of mine. So happy to ever talk grocery stores if you ever want to talk. And then environmental sustainability. So this is anything from your renewable energy projects to just looking at solar on rooftops, especially around grocery or other energy intensive type projects. And then they always look for public-private partnerships. It's really important for new market tax credits to work hand in glove with the city and county because the program is really driven to help you all accomplish your goals. And it's helped subsidize that in sometimes a more flexible way than your traditional HUD financing. It's a lot more flexible. It can be used for pretty much anything but the sin businesses, so casinos, gambling, track, golf courses is a sin business too, apparently. A lot of swearing out there on the golf course, I guess. Price Chopper, so here's an example of a Price Chopper that I did. So I'm not going to go through all these in detail. Very low income neighborhood. The grocer was going to leave. They'd been there for 20 years. They had a 20,000 square foot store. They were just going to up and leave because it was time to go. And they couldn't afford a store. So we actually got hired to come in and helped put together the whole capital stack. So we did a TIF and a super TIF, a CID, new markets. It ended up, this grocery store is open, and was the most profitable opening of any grocery store that this chain had done in 80 years. In a low-income community where everyone said we were crazy and no one's going to go there, this was the only store in that history actually to open not at a negative after the first 3 months. So I mean, it's such a cool success story. And it was in place of a demolished or abandoned Kmart was there previously. So we all know the Kmarts that have gone out and they're just sitting usually they're in holes. And we ended up tearing it down to build that store. Here's another one in Baton Rouge, which is Rouse's grocery store. I did another one in New Orleans. So that's their big chain there. Their big hometown chain is Rouse's. This was an abandoned FEMA trailer site. I'm sorry, this is Louisiana, not Baton Rouge, but same company, Rouse's. This is the Merck. This is more of a smaller grocery store. So this is was a 15,000 square foot grocery store that I'd worked on in my previous life at List. For a long time, we couldn't end up getting a large 40,000 square foot grocery store. So they did, they worked with a local operator called the Merck, which was a co-op. And the way that the county and city actually ended up building this building and entering into a long-term or short-term lease, a 3-year lease with an operator to operate the building in hopes that the operator would actually purchase the building after it knew it could make money and it proved that concept. And this is now, and of course we opened right when COVID started. So that was super fun. But now actually they're another client of mine. I'm working with them again. And that store is profitable. It took about 2 or 3 years for it to be profitable. And then they are extending that management contract another 3 years and will likely purchase that building after that second contract. It has a classroom in it. It also has a cooking demonstration kitchen. So they also work with the local schools, do environmental education and teach them about cooking with fresh vegetables, healthy foods, those types of things. So it's a really, really interesting grocery store project. And then this is industrial. So this is just 360,000 square feet. Private developer and our biggest brewery in Kansas City is Boulevard Brewery, and they were going to lease the first 180,000 square feet for a bottling line. And this was the pioneering building of a multi-phase. I think now they're up to 9 or 10 buildings in this location. But it's IRBs, it's an abandoned quarry, environmental issues, all the things that we hear about on a regular basis. We also worked with the local Workforce Investment Board to train and hire people from the high school to work at the facility. So, which was a fun partnership. The developer actually contributed 100,000 of the new market tax credits to the Workforce Investment Board to create the training program. So they, created a pipeline for themselves, which was a win-win for everybody. This is just a rural hospital, critical access hospital. Did a nuclear medical suite. It was a small project, $7.5 million for the first phase. Another couple million for the second.
So lots there. Just to leave you with a couple thoughts before we take any questions. So ViStar applied for allocation in the 2022 round, or 23 round. And our goal is really to be a facilitator and a thought leader in this space, bring people together to have positive outcomes. So excited to be able to share this knowledge. And really, it's complicated, but they're widely used throughout the country and have really had an incredible impact in communities around the states. Because Florida is considered an underserved state, it's really it's primed for new market deals. So as you're thinking through them and how you think that you might need additional capital to make them work, I think new markets are a really great way to make that happen. And then if you want to close on that.
Sure, yeah. In the underserved state, there's only 7 underserved states in the country, and you're one of them. And it's not that there aren't projects here, it's your population's so large in a lot of places that it skews it a little bit, but that's good because a lot of people in their application say, I want to direct this % of my allocation to underserved states. So you get a special bonus essentially for being in an underserved state, which is great. The program itself is $5 billion, so it was $3.5 billion. We got a 5-year extension. They increased it to $5 billion. super strong bipartisan support. It's just went through the House again. It's going through the Senate here soon for a permanency bill. We've been working on that for a decade or more, and we think that it'll be permanent here within definitely within the next 5 years. It'll be a permanent part of the tax code. And we've talked about the 25% equity, and they are complicated, but they're definitely doable, and they've been done in communities small and large.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, thank you. I have some commissioners up here to recognize. We'll go through those. And just FYI, y'all, I will do my best to know whose light it is, but if the light that you pushed, if you want to talk, push the light in front of you, and when it starts blinking, that means you're up next. So fairly straightforward system over here. I think our mics are hot. Well, they're not hot. If you push the button, though, the little red light will come on, and that's the microphone. All right, Chair Prizia.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here, and I appreciate Commissioner Ward, Mayor Ward, being willing to allow you all to come. I had been in conversations with ViStar when I found out they had got their Community Development Finance Institution status. So many of you know I worked for a while on the idea of trying to attract a CDFI here. A CDFI is, I'm just going to use an example. It's not exact, but it's sort of like what nonprofits are to banks. They're a mission driven. They have a mission driven focus, and they do lending in areas that typically would be considered, quote, too risky. They work a lot with people who don't have the credit scores, with new first-time entrepreneurs, businesses, low-income housing, those sorts of projects that often, to use Heather's term, don't pencil on paper, but they work to fill in those gaps where, perhaps an entrepreneur doesn't have friends and family they can go to, things like that. I've been trying to get a CDFI along with a whole group of people to be in Alachua County because it was identified by the Fed when they came here as one of the things that we're really missing, and one of the reasons why community development isn't happening in the ways that it's happening around the country is because we were missing that key tool. And so we're trying to kind of attract one. When ViStar got their CDFI status, and I read about it in the newspaper and was thrilled and reached out to them immediately and said, I'm so excited you're here. Can't wait to work with you to do some amazing projects. And I immediately started thinking about this kind of work because I know that we have this collaboration with the CRA. And as you saw, a number of the projects that they used as examples are the types of projects we're trying to do. The healthcare clinic, the grocery store, mixed retail housing projects, industrial with the eco loop and some of the airport area stuff that we're trying to do, the power district. I mean, I just feel like the possibilities are really endless, I think, in terms of the kinds of work we're trying to do with the CRA dollars as well as with some of our economic development dollars and even tourism dollars. So I just wanted to have them come and share these ideas with you so we can start the conversation. I mean, I think this is the beginning of a conversation about what's possible with new market tax credits in our community.
Thank you. If I could make a comment on that, and thank you. And I apologize for not giving more background on CDFI. Just to piggyback on that, our initiatives around lending are across commercial, consumer, and real estate. So we're incredibly passionate and focused on affordable housing. That's on the lending as well as on increasing inventory and advocating for housing access, and then as well as supporting minority women-owned businesses in the commercial space and providing that technical assistance and affordable, attainable loan products that are community building, wealth building. So across all areas of lending are really our areas of focus.
One last thing I did want to say before I pass the mic is I know that there's currently a bill in Tallahassee. I don't know how it's going, but maybe you could give us an update on that. And that is originally cities, counties were not allowed to deposit funds into a credit union per state statute, but there is a bill to currently change that so that we would be able to deposit with credit unions, which would make a big difference as well. And so I know that the county voted to write a letter of support for that bill.
Thank you.
And I was wondering if you had an update on that.
I'm sorry, I do not have an update.
Okay.
I can send
Okay.
one. If that's
That would
all
be
right.
great, yeah. All right, I'll pass
Very
the
good.
torch.
Thank you. Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Commissioner. And thank you both. I always like seeing wonderful construction projects, and you've made Kansas very attractive to me right now. I never thought I'd say, but you
The
made
Gainesville sites look good too, right?
Yeah, they do. They do. I've been in those, but you made Kansas look good, and that's a feat. So I do have a question or two. Sorry to anyone from Kansas.
Ew.
I'm from Chicago, it's okay.
Hey, we're good.
I live there.
I do have a question. As far as you're newly certified, but traditionally, at least ViStar is newly certified, but traditionally, to kind of follow up on something Chair Prizia said, how do you reach out to those minority-owned businesses where they may not necessarily be in the atmosphere, in the company of like, oh, there's this pot of money or there's this opportunity. How do you reach out to them? How do they reach out to you? How is that knowledge passed on,
Yeah,
that
thank you.
opportunity explained?
Yep, so we are newly certified. We were certified in 2021, but we like to say that we were a CDFI before we were certified as a CDFI. If you look at our track record of lending and our community impacts, you'll see that we've been doing CDFI type lending or community lending for the majority of our history, and particularly under the leadership of our CEO, incredibly focused on community lending. We are very involved in the community, forming relationships and partnerships with local organizations, the CDCs, the nonprofits, and really in the community, hearing what the people need so then we can design products and programs that are going to really help them reach their goals. So we partner with a number of organizations wherever our branch network is, and that's our main way of doing that. And then we have marketing that is hopefully getting the message out, and this is a great stage for us to be able to get that message out as well. So thank you for this opportunity to share what we're doing. But it's really communicating that we have flexible underwriting. We take a personal approach to how we underwrite, and we take the time with our members to help them on their financial journeys and getting them into loan products that they can afford and sustain so they can maintain their assets.
Thank you. So I like that middle part. I think I'm more interested in that beginning part where you said you have outreach people who are going to those nonprofits, and I think
Yeah.
that's the part that I'm most focused on,
Yeah.
because it's great that you help them once they get to you.
Absolutely,
It's
yeah.
the
That's a
getting
part
to
of my
you.
job also. We actually have an entire community engagement team,
Okay.
and we have ViStar Foundation, which was recently launched, and that whole network within ViStar that lead our community engagement efforts. That's a huge part of our being able to share the message of credit union and financial literacy, and really bringing banking services to the under and unbanked.
That's great to hear. Like knowing that there is someone whose job it is
Yes,
to go
thank
do
you.
that really helps. I think as far as I did mention, I did hear that you could leverage part of the fund for infrastructure as you begin redevelopment. Would that be applicable to state roads, or are there limitations on where it's applicable? Because I have one particular site in mind.
Yeah, good question. So it has to be in conjunction with a project that supports low-income people somehow. So, every project is different, right? And so, yes, it can be used for infrastructure if there's a project that will support either job creation or provide goods and services. That makes it attractive to that, because that's the mission of Newmarket. So
long as the road is adjacent, no, you don't care who owns it.
there will be, we do care who owns it.
Okay.
So if you're going through it's like a traditional construction or, debt loan on a commercial property. You're gonna go through that same underwriting. We're still gonna have to know who the owner is. The city can lease it 100 years to XXX entity, and then it's fine, and it goes through if that's the case. But there are a lot of ways to figure it out.
Okay, because I think one of the things, at least from the city side, we've been looking at as new developments come in, we're often with very good goals and really our mission strategy driven to redevelop and enhance opportunities for housing, for other job opportunities. We also look at redeveloping and redesigning the infrastructure around the way, because it helps. Makes it
So at
easier
the
for
E-Heady
transit.
At the E-Heady project, right?
Similar to that.
We talked about that infrastructure, so that infrastructure need was about $4.5 million. You could hypothetically pair it with another project, get let's say the other project was 5 million, that one was 4.5, let's say it's 10. You can combine them and then leverage 10 million of allocation to help subsidize one or both of those projects. So sometimes the other thing you could do is, I already have the money for something. Well, what if I could go get Newmarket tax credits for it and save another 2 million or 2.5 million and use it somewhere else, or pay for operating for something like, a sports center or like some type of community amenity. You can also use the tax credits for operating dollars. As long as they're within a certain period, they have to be spent within, a pretty short period of time, 24 months maximum, I think is where it stands today. But you could also include operating dollars in your capital stack. So you can use that just for operating if you want to. Like I said, there's different ways to utilize it. You just have to be as creative as you can to figure out where you need the money the most.
we got creative people, but I think just knowing that the possibility exists gives me some hope. And just to reiterate, 'cause I can pull it up. You said that Congress is currently looking at making the the annual $5 billion a permanent. Okay. Do we know roughly how, like, is that going well? Is that,
It's going great. No,
Okay.
so we've gone through a lot of appropriations lately, which has, it's just muddied the waters in terms of when is it going to get. It's going to be permanent. We just don't know when and what bill, because it was attached to the big infrastructure bill. Well, that had to give and take, and so the permanency bill went out, but we got a 5-year extension. So blah blah. At
It'll
some
be
point,
shoved
it
somewhere.
needs to find the right bill.
okay.
But everyone agrees that low-income housing tax credits, historic tax credits, all those things are pretty much get extended every year or are made permanent eventually.
Okay. I mean, that's not a bad thing to hear. And I guess my final one is, as far as you showed some of the ones that you do have here, are there any other projects currently in the pipeline that you know of in at least Gainesville or Alachua County, or any that you are beginning conversations? You don't even have to tell me like who it is, but like, is it housing? Is it food? Is it?
So for new markets, as Chris said, it's rarely used for housing. There are other programs under the CD5 fund that are better and more appropriately designed to be for housing. So we're here just talking about new markets today, but the CD5 fund, I think, has about 11 different programs that are for different things, for housing, for commercial lending, but I wouldn't know which ones were getting allocation now.
Not for here, so it's all dependent on the group that has the allocation and projects that lately are typically brought to them. So I'm not aware of any from somebody else. I know that we talked to Tampa about doing their food bank, which is what, 30 million, I think, their expansion.
It probably was.
And so there may be a project here, I'm not sure, but in Jacksonville, we're definitely looking at projects. So food is one that, that Heather, you can talk about food. You're passionate about food as
I
well.
want to be respectful of time, but incredibly passionate about food and just building healthy communities in general, childcare, food systems, and then workforce development are things that we're personally very passionate about. But in general, building a healthy community, everything that a person might need to thrive and build wealth.
But none that we can think of currently, right? And here.
Projects that are currently being funded right now, I would be guessing, and I wouldn't want
Okay,
to.
that's fine.
But
I wasn't aware if like
Sure.
you knew of any like off the top of your head, like, oh yeah, we got like 15.
we are doing a grocery store in Jacksonville right now that has an allocation, but the allocation would have been awarded about 2 years ago. We're doing a Winn-Dixie in Jacksonville, which is in a food desert. I would have to get a list together. I'd have to think through it.
That's a fair answer.
And I
Thank
think
you.
our goal is just to educate right now, so there will be projects in the future, right? Like it is just such an obscure program. I mean, in all of Kansas City, I'm the only full-time new market tax credit person. That's how small the industry is. There's like less than 1,000 people nationwide that do it every day. So it's a very small niche. So some communities are just, if you don't hear about it, like it's hard to get information on because it's online. It's
I think that gives me the answer.
Yeah.
Either
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
is apparently not many because we can't
Right.
think of a
Yep.
handful.
We would like developers to think, oh, I could do that project here where I may not have done it, and that's good for the community. So to get everyone thinking a little bit about what could be.
Okay, thank you both. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Commissioner Cornell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Madam Chair. So what I think about is, I remember when the Cade Museum got their allocation, and it was really the last piece that was necessary to make that project work. And I appreciate you guys bringing it up, thinking about our CRA. Chris, you had mentioned that the group that has the allocation in Jacksonville, can you talk a little bit about how groups, and then how do we tie into those groups, get the allocation, what the allocation annual cycle looks like, and how could our staff plug into those groups? Because I think we have, in this community over the next 5 to 6 years, upwards of 50 to 70 million of CRA funding that the city and the county is allocating. You mentioned sports facilities. We're talking about a facility on the corner of 8th and Waldo Road. So the city has explored a grocery store. So you hit a lot of the words that we've been talking about for the last 4 or 5 years. So how does the cycle work? Who are the groups, and how does our staff tie into those groups?
Do you want to start?
You go for it. You know about the CDFI. You
I
just
can-
became a CD.
What's 2021? I'll start and I'll let him take it home. A CDE, which is a subsidiary of a CDFI, applies for an allocation. In that application, they put potential projects that they would fund if given an allocation. And so those projects should support the kind of projects they would want to fund. So grocery stores, for example. But also, you would have had a track record of doing that kind of lending. So the CDFI fund doesn't want to incentivize you doing new lending, right? They want to support the lending you're already doing, which is what we, as a credit union, ViStar wants to do. So you have a CDE win an allocation, and if you want to see who's won allocation.
I'm sorry, you said CDE.
I'm sorry, Community Development Entity. For the purposes of this, that's also CDFI. It's basically the same thing, but just to be technical, CDE. And so you can see the list of CDEs that have won allocation. I can share a link if that would be helpful.
It's just groups that are eligible to apply.
Right. So we applied in last year's round, and we would use our allocation to fund projects that are in line with our strategy. So you would want to get your project in front of someone who's won an allocation, so they could give you, you're basically making a pitch for your project to receive a part of their allocation.
And I can go through that.
Yes.
So I always say it's never too early to talk about new markets, because if it's an important part of your capital stack, it's complicated. You want to make sure all your sources of income are going to be able to put through either through the new market structure. But overall, the way it works is someone has an idea about a project. They come to somebody who's either a CDE, CDFI, or a new markets consultant. They say, this is what I want to do. Is this eligible? What's your thoughts? So those people give you thoughts on your project and whether they think it's competitive in the new market space, which is very highly competitive nationwide. And all these groups that get their allocation, they do this ahead of time. So they have pipelines of deals that if people have brought them through the course of like a 6 or 7 month period or 8 month period or longer sometimes, and they put those in a general pipeline. Most of those will never close. They will never be real projects, but a lot of them will close. And so these groups have this list and deals fall out and in. And so if you hit it at the right time and you have everything organized and put together and groups get allocation, then you're in a really good position to be able to fund your project. But Commissioner, you're right that this is typically the last piece that's finalized in a project, because those allocations need to go out quickly. These groups want to get them out quickly so they can apply again. And so they have a stream of projects that can close immediately right when they get their funding and the awards are announced. And then they have a second tier, which is okay, we'll do these first and then these next. And then so there's about a 6 to 8 month window that's kind of your prime spot. And then you wait for the next round of allocations, which is not a designated date, it's a season. And it's been a season for 16 years, and I don't know why. It's like winter, they'll just go, they're gonna be announced in winter. But we all, like last year was October, it was supposed to be fall.
It's going to be fall this year as well.
Yeah, so we're hoping October, usually that means the last day of fall, but
And
this
then
year they were early.
That's helpful. And then last question, Mr. Mayor. What is the amount that the government is looking to allocate to the state of Florida of the $5 billion? Is there
So there's no set amount per state.
Okay.
It's all dependent on the groups that apply. So ViStar is applying only for the state of Florida. So there's very few that are only here. And so to get another CDFI that will get allocations is a huge deal, especially in northern Florida. Because those CDE, that's how we look at projects. We look at concentric circles of who's got allocation or who the players are. And then we kind of go out from there, from local, hyper-local to national. And then we make that evaluation, but they're right down the block. So our hope
And is their allocation public? Do we know how much ViStar received for the state of
It'll be
Florida?
public.
very public.
Allocations are announced.
How much
you
did
can see-
ViStar receive for their last allocation?
This is our first time applying in the round. And you can see all of the awardees from the history of the program on the CDFI Fund website.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cornell. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, ViStar, for this really enlightening presentation that certainly whet my appetite. I was a part of those conversations along with Chair Prezia when we were talking to Self-Help a few years ago about coming to Gainesville, and some of the work that they do is mission-oriented and very similar to yours. That deal kind of fell to the wayside, and we weren't able to bring them here, which is why it is particularly interesting to me now to see you all standing before me. I want to thank, too, Commissioner Cornell for asking some really important questions that I think were really, really informative and helpful. I want to ask about some specific things. You are obviously familiar with some of the things that we're doing, but I have a desire to expand healthcare in East Gainesville. And so we have a clinic that is online. It's coming online. But also the community has expressed to us a need to see a health plaza, if you will, / smaller size hospital. I saw that you've done that. That was really interesting to me. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that project. That one was in Kansas. How much does it cost to do something like that?
So that was an addition put onto an existing, it was a federally qualified health center. So is the University of Florida also a federally qualified health center? I didn't know, that question came up today and I don't think anyone can answer that.
I don't know.
So that designation, there's a lot of federally qualified health centers that get financed through new markets. They're great projects. There is a group in Florida that only does healthcare. And that's all they focus their new markets on. And they were the ones that did the Kansas projects as well. And so there are groups that just, that's what they want to do, whether that's your health clinic, your walk-in type health clinic, or whether that's, your FQHC, your critical access hospital, which is, those 13-bed, I don't know how many critical access hospitals you have here, but the one that I showed was a critical access hospital as well. So those projects come together by capital campaigns and funding, so local support by both the city, county, and then foundation community. There's a big foundation that gave a bunch of money to that one. That's typically how those deals come together. And the project was, I think, $9 million in total, but we were able to do it at the same time because we were able to secure that additional $2 million. So they're able to do both phases at the exact same time. So that was a huge time saver, and then they had operating dollars to operate. So healthcare is something that, as long as the cost is there and the location's right, New Markets is used all the time for that type of project.
Thank you very much for that. I see here on one of your slides that you have Hitchcock's Market. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what your work with them was?
That was just an example. I
Just an
would have to
example?
look at who actually brought the allocation to that
Okay.
deal. I wonder if it's actually on that slide. And thank you for telling me that's how to say that. It's Hitchcock's.
Slide 9.
Thank you. And there it is. I don't believe it says there on the top.
Is it Florida?
It might be Florida Community Loan Fund.
Yeah.
I can look that up for you pretty easily.
Okay, I would. Hitchcock's is one of the community's favorites around here. And my district is one that is a food desert here. So it's the one that we've been discussing a lot, both at the city and with the city and the county, about how we actually resolve that. And Hitchcock's actually came forward a couple of years ago saying that they would like to come to the table, but there have been a few things from the financial perspective that have not allowed them to really engage and move that project forward. But perhaps this is a way that we can bring them back to the table, because the community has expressed a real desire to see them in East Gainesville.
That's great. The community support and working with the community is a huge part of making it work. So that's very, very, very nice.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll conclude for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Duncan Walker and Commissioner Cornell. Is that you again? Or
I think it's
Commissioner Buck?
Alford.
Mr. Mayor, we're not allowing Commissioner Cornell to speak again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Chair Prizzi, I appreciate you bringing Vice Chair to talk about this interesting program. You mentioned that the program itself is obscure, but it sounds like the impacts are anything but obscure, which really, just like our Mayor Pro Tem just talked, is very, very intriguing. The CDFI status, how long does that last that you have? And what does that do as far as how you envision our role putting together, partnerships or leverage once we identify a vendor or an NGO that might be right up our alley for a couple of the big projects that we're talking about?
So a CDFI goes through an annual recertification. So every year you have to show that you are doing the kind of work that you said you were going to do and is the reason why you got certified. So I guess it only lasts a year at a time, because if you stopped doing any community lending, then there would be no reason for the CDFI fund to continue to give you that designation or give you the opportunity to apply for funding to then further that lending. So like I said, we've been doing that kind of lending for our whole history, and so we're very proud of our lending history and the relationships and the partnerships that we've formed in the community and the amount of wealth that we've helped people build. We won a grant a few weeks ago, actually, to support our affordable housing efforts. And so we're very excited to be able to further the impact that we're having in our communities around affordable, or as we like to say, equitable housing. And so we're really very much we're laser focused on bringing affordable financial products to our communities.
All the CDFIs have a board that's reflective of their community, and that's serving the low to moderate income individuals. So that's the core of all of the new markets. And so when they look at these groups like ViStar, they look at their board, they look at who they serve, how are they serving the community, and then they make a determination whether they're a citizen, a resident of that low income community itself, or work there. That's how they make those determinations. So you have to have a board that's reflective of the community which you work, which is different in a local, like I would say, environment. If you're just like a Gainesville CDFI, right, then you have a different group than if it was a regional CDFI. So CDFIs in general are reflective of their communities through their board.
So I understand that you're basically applying annually to retain the status.
Yes.
And the projects, at least a couple of the ones that a couple of the colleagues here up at the dais have mentioned, in our community redevelopment area, which happens to be a combined area, so that probably provides us some leverage. They're gigantic, they're multi-partner, they're multi-stakeholder. One's essentially envisioned as a transit, potentially food, health, and incubator hub in a geographic area, and that's one big area. Clearly more than an annual renewal, something that we're going to be speaking about and working probably incrementally in pieces over many years. And then the other one is essentially a recreational complex in our east side that involves multiple types of recreation and potentially private and public government. So how do you kind of reconcile the annual renewal with the fact that we probably have some real projects that meet the strategy that you're talking about?
Yeah, and I hope this will answer the question. We are already doing this kind of lending. So all of those projects that you talk about, they're fantastic projects that we are well within our ability to maintain our recertification because we have always been so committed to doing this kind of lending. We are also low-income designated credit union, which means that we have to maintain that at least 60% of our members are minorities, and we are well above that because being in our communities and serving our communities is our priority. Bringing financial services that's the first and most important thing that we do. And we are members first, not profits. So I kind of want to say we would love to be part of those projects, but we don't need to be to maintain our certification because we're gonna do this lending anyway because that's what we've always done. That's our goal as a credit union.
And I don't really ever hear of any CDFIs, whether they purposely go defunct because typically the issue is they can't raise enough money. So CDFIs are effectively just a lot of them are nonprofit banks or similar, and they have a hard time raising the capital needed to distribute in their community. And so that's been the biggest challenge, frankly, to getting CDFIs is, it's hard to raise money, especially if you're in low-income communities to re-lend in the community, right? The foundations look at it like grant dollars because they have to, right? But then you have to underwrite like you're a lender as well. So like it's a really nuanced thing, but I don't ever really hear of anyone losing their status. I mean, there are certain, large groups that are involved in the program that have had national issues and they have not lost their status. So I think it's pretty hard.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess what I'm hearing you say is regardless of this formalized status, it aligns with the vision of what you would do anyway.
Absolutely.
as
Thank you
a,
for saying that better than I
As a
did.
credit union. So you're looking to get into that and make some partnerships there, regardless of what happens with that particular thing. Though you've made the statement that we're already considered an underserved community, which gives us some leverage for our ability to essentially be a stakeholder in a grant process or an equity process.
Absolutely.
There. So
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I understand. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, Madam Chair of the county, thanks for bringing them. I conclude.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Book. Commissioner Alford, not Commissioner Alford, that's Commissioner Willis, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple questions. One is about what is the required length of time of the impact, whether you're going for, if it's about jobs in low income areas. Because I wonder a little bit about some of these that are, I think the Cade is going to be there forever, hopefully, right? But Hitchcock's, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be there forever or how long. And if we're talking about loans and credits that go to a building, and then that at some point the market's no longer there, they leave and they sell a building to somebody else. So what is the requirements under the new market tax credit about how long?
Typically, the hold period is 7 years.
Okay.
So that's the compliance period. I personally have not seen new markets just because they are complicated. People don't usually walk in and say, "Oh, I'll just buy that new markets deal," because there's guarantees and all that other stuff, involved in the closing. But 7 years is typically the hold period. So you can't just flip it, get the subsidy, and sell to somebody else. That person has to own the property. So from a governmental standpoint, that person, if you're providing any kind of subsidy, whether that be, doing a CID or a TIF or whatever, then that person's responsible, and they're there not for the long term, but at least for a big chunk. 7 years is a pretty long time. You figure out what a project's going to be like typically after 7 years. Grocery is one of those ones that can quickly go bad if it can quickly go bad. And there are ways and mechanisms to keep the new markets in the building, even if that grocery store goes defunct or you name whatever tenant that would be. So like in the Merck building that I showed, the Unified Government of Wyandotte County owns and they lease, if that building would have gone dark during COVID, it still would have retained its new markets because the UG, the Unified Government, would have just leased it to themselves. And so it's still a functioning business, even though the new markets, the intention of the new markets is still not there. It was in the beginning. So there was a likelihood that the project would succeed, a strong likelihood. So it's all semantics, but if it closes, you don't just give them back. And tax credits are set when they're set. They're set at the beginning of the project. They can't claw them back unless it really goes bad. These deals just don't go bad because they're so underwritten by so many people. Typically speaking, not all the time.
Glad to hear Wyandotte County. My family, half of my family is from there, so
really?
I actually know roughly where you're talking about. I've been to the old Kmart that at least that parking lot. I got lost once. I turned off I-49, ended up in the wrong place.
You know exactly where it is.
I know exactly where it is.
Yep.
My other question, or one of my other questions, is about. It sounds like for ViStar having a pipeline. You mentioned this, that some of these CDFIs have pipelines. It behooves you to have a pipeline of, in essence, shovel-ready projects, right?
For anyone with allocation, because as Chris said, you have a certain amount of time before you've got to fund the projects in order to then apply again the next year. So yeah, anyone who has an allocation, who's applying for allocation, would want to have a number of projects.
And so do you have, this is your first, but do these other CDFIs, what is it like? Do people just come knocking down their doors? Do you have to reach out to them first? And particularly when we talk about things that municipal governments may have an interest in, may have a stake in, may have some of the funding for, do they tend to come knock on your door, or are you knocking on their doors?
I'll go first. It's a two-way street. You're looking for, if you have an interest in an area, you would like to know what are the projects that are important for the city, right? What are things that are going to help because you care, and you kind of get a personal relationship with the project, and you want to see that get funded. And if you can bring something to that project, then that's personal for you. But then also, if you have a project and you know that we're applying, and you think that we can help bring funding to a project, then you would also call or email us.
They have it in the pipeline, right?
Sorry?
Put in their application.
What is that? No.
Oh, yeah.
So it's a two-way street, yeah.
So the pipeline is bigger than your application pipeline. So you put your core projects that sound the best in your application based on what you're telling them you're going to do. But then you have a pipeline of much more projects because they ask you to basically put projects in your application a year before you know if you're going to get an award. Well, that's really, really hard to do, right? So they know that these projects are likely going to happen or will happen or may happen, but they're not like end-all, be-all projects. And so you're still flexible and can use that allocation wherever you want. You don't have to use it on projects that are included in your application. You can use them on anything. And oftentimes, this is kind of sad to say, but like some CDEs will even just look through the paper and say, oh, there's a nonprofit project, and like include it in their pipeline.
But any project still has to be an eligible project.
It has to be eligible, it has to be located in the New Markets eligible census tract, need the subsidy, all of that stuff, but there's so many projects that fit that bill. But we like to keep local projects at the top. And so in meeting with you, that we will just put projects that we hear here on a list and say, okay, we need to follow up about these projects.
Right.
So we'll come to you in that respect, or if you have a project that you're thinking of that could be a New Markets project, I mean, ViStar and I'm happy to help and let you know how that is, if that is eligible, and our opinion on how competitive it would be in the marketplace.
For ViStar, how many credit union locations do you have in our area? Or
3 or 4?
okay.
I think 4.
I'm roughly aware of it, but I couldn't really think of it. I bank at a different credit union.
Thank you for being a credit union member.
Yes, we are covered by FDIC up to $250,000. So if y'all have
At your
big
credit
money
union?
I'm pretty sure.
NCUA.
NCUA.
I'm sorry, I just said FDIC. Most people know FDIC. It is NCUA.
It is exactly the
She just
same
corrected
thing.
me.
NCUA insured.
Basically the same thing, but you're right.
Right.
So not another question, but I'm excited to hear about this, particularly the flexibility of it, because some of the things we think about jointly between the city and the county, we can benefit from that flexibility or innovative. Particularly when we talked about grocery, I was excited to see that one of these was a co-op project, which is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
I personally would love to see a co-op grocery in Gainesville. We had one that attempted that but did not succeed.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea of, I think some people think of grocery as only that super large public size grocery, but Hitchcock's is something that is, not as big as a Publix necessarily. And unfortunately, most things go to this, really big, large grocery, but other models do exist. They may be hard and they need the flexibility. Like I said, a co-op would just be amazing because I think there's a lot of support in our community where people want to be active, people want to, they want to have a stake in it beyond just I'm a customer. And so I think a co-op is something that has appealed to people in the past, but that's the kind of thing that would need a little more flexibility for the full financing of it and setting it up, as opposed to other models that we've
Yeah.
attempted or that are possible.
Completely agree. I actually did my undergrad at the College of Agricultural and Life Sciences here, and incredibly passionate about food access and healthy eating. So, agree. The co-op model, it's unusual, but it might be the thing that's going to work in this community where maybe a big name retailer may not be successful. So it definitely needs to be looked at as a viable option for our community.
All right, that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I'll make a comment or two, and Commissioner President, I'll let you close up. Well, actually, we'll go to the people after this. It's an exciting array of possibilities, and clearly we've got a lot of things that are kind of waiting in the pipeline, opportunities. We've got the Power District nearer to downtown that I'm sure fits within your zone as well. There's a lot that could happen here. I am also, in addition to being interested in all the things you've talked about, much of East Gainesville, particularly the other side of Waldo Road, east of Waldo Road, is a financial desert. You can't. There may be 2 ATMs. There are no actual financial institutions there. I think that's a concern, and that's something that I really want to see us address more than just about anything else. It's a question of making sure folks who live east of Waldo Road feel represented and feel as if the financial industry matters to them and cares about them. And that's something that I would definitely want to see us move toward. And I would love to see you all interested in that as we move forward, particularly with the E-Heady project and that sort of thing. Looks like we do have one more question down here, and that's Commissioner Wheeler.
Yes, thank you. I belong to Post Credit Union for Teachers. It's been really beneficial for those of us who don't make a lot of money. I'm curious to know so you're a lending institution, yes? You lend money out for these projects. Is that what we're looking at? So that at the end of 7 years, how is that money that we're getting from you then returned to you? How are we paying for that? Is there a percentage? What is the, how do we pay that back? Because you're not just giving us that money, right?
The subsidy you would get, so the new market tax credits generated from that, you'd receive the benefit. Those would be sold to a big bank, basically like the U.S. banks of the world. That's who buys those credits. They would buy them, and then you would get that 20%, as we call it, the 20% equity. The other mechanism to financing is really project to project, whether that's cash in hand, whether that's a bond issuance, whether that's IRB. There's a lot of different ways, or whether that's just true bank debt for an individual, which would be ViStar's, what they would be providing. So it'd be like your typical loan, your market rate loan, like any developer would get, essentially. But if it's a city, sometimes you use bond issuance, you use other things to be able to finance the other 80% of the project.
The advantage then of working through you is a lower rate?
So it's the forgivable 20%. So if we're able to secure $10 million for a $10 million project of new market tax credits, that generates about $2 million of subsidy for that project, but the remaining needs to be financed through something
Regularly financed then, so, and that depends on whatever the rate is going right at that time. Are they generally fixed or variable? Does it matter?
Fixed. They have to be fixed
So,
for 7
okay.
years because there's too much angst with investors. If things change, they want to be locked in and know exactly what's going to happen for 7 years.
I got you.
We didn't want to put up a structure because it's very complicated, and every deal is a little bit different, but there are multiple pieces to the capital stack to make the deal work. But high level there.
I see. What is that rate right now? Do you want to?
For a commercial loan or?
Yes.
It's
That's why
really
I just.
institution dependent. So like market right now, like Prime's at 8% now. So, I mean, a lot of banks, not credit unions, but banks are
Right.
lending at over 8% right now.
You started by talking about Suncoast, so not to get into the major differences between credit unions and banks, but credit unions, our goals are to have higher rates for saving and lower rates for borrowing. So you would traditionally find lower rates if you were going to take out a loan for commercial or real estate than you would at a bank, but I don't want to misspeak.
No,
because-
that's what I was asking.
Yes,
You know,
yeah,
that- What the advantage would be of working through your program for us. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Did you want to make a comment before we go out to?
Sure. I guess I just wanted to say, well, to answer Commissioner Wheeler, for example, if they had a new market tax credit allocation and they said they had a bucket of, I don't know, $20 million to allocate, just to make up a number. And we had the healthcare clinic and we were doing, just pretend it was a $10 million project and we applied for $10 million of their allocation. And then they said, okay, great, we'll do that project. We would get $2 million, it was like $2 million of money. If that project lasted 7 years, then that would be a grant. So that $2 million would never have to get paid back. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah. What I wanted to say was thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I just wanted to spur the thought and the creativity and get the juices flowing. And I hope next steps are that we can share some of this information with the broader community. Hopefully some people are watching, because I know everyone loves to watch these riveting meetings. But that we can continue to take this out into the community and share this with developers and with other folks who are interested in investing in these kinds of projects, so that as we work together through the CRA and other economic engines of the city and the county to emphasize the priorities we have for redeveloping East Gainesville and for building the kinds of services like groceries and banks that we need in that part of our county and in the broader rural areas, that we can begin to get the private partnership that we need as well here. Because part of the reason why we're an underserved state is because a lot of the development community isn't at the table either. And so that's kind of some of the next steps that I see, is beginning to sort of get the creative juices flowing here, and then to also get them flowing in the broader community around these ideas. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you all. I appreciate you. So if anyone from the public would like to participate, we don't seem to have anyone signed up. Okay. All right. Thank you all for all the interest in this, and we will, I'm sure, hear more about this as we move forward. So, Madam Clerk, what's up next?
Our next item is 2023-375, Joint City County Housing Presentation, with a recommendation that the City Commission and Board of County Commissioners receive a presentation from city and county staff.
Very good. Welcome, Mr. Smart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Madam Chair, Commissioners. This is a joint presentation, and I rise just to kind of do a quick introduction and let you know that we have given clear direction to county staff, and I've had conversations with your city manager, who's done the same with city staff, to work together to come up with innovative, creative, and collaborative ways to more effectively deal with this issue. This is a priority on both sides of the street, and so we think that maybe by staff working together, meeting regularly, and working together, sharing information, sharing strategies, sharing expert opinions, that we'll come up with a more effective way to deal with the housing issue here in Gainesville and Alachua County. So with that, we're going to do a joint presentation to try to make it as efficient as possible, but we've got a lot of information to share with you today. And with that, Andrew.
Welcome, Mr. Persons.
Thank you. Andrew Persons, Special Advisor to the City Manager. As Mr. Smart indicated, we have been meeting as a interagency housing coordination group for the past roughly 7 months, starting in September of last year and continuing on a monthly basis. I think the meetings have been very productive. There's more in common that we have with our counterparts across the street than differences, and we've been talking very much about some of the things that we are both working on, sometimes at the same time, things like the local housing assistance plan or the consolidated plan. We're also talking about ways that both jurisdictions are leveraging our ARPA allocations for housing, and we're keeping up to date on sort of what each side of the street is doing. There are a number of policy work that I think we're both doing right now, with the city working on inclusionary zoning and the county also starting work on that. And then we're looking at other ways that we're working together, both from a programmatic funding sense, but then also from a regulatory sense. Obviously, we don't necessarily want to do something in the city and you walk out the side of the city limits and the policy changes dramatically. So I think the meetings have been very helpful for keeping staff sort of abreast on what each other is doing and looking for opportunities where we can hopefully in the future leverage maybe joint projects or other types of opportunities to work together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Corey Harris, who's going to take us through the city's portion of the presentation.
Welcome, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Ward, to the City of Gainesville Commission, to Madam Chair Prizia, and the Board of County Commission. Again, Corey Harris, Director of Housing and Community Development. I think Mr. Person did a great job of kicking us off. Just to let you guys know, just as an announcement, our next meeting is tomorrow. So if you want to participate in our next meeting, our two housing staff departments will be meeting again tomorrow. Again, that's on the third Wednesday. But before you hear, you'll see some information that was produced by the Schimberg Center. As you can see roughly about 5,000 cost burden households. Cost burden just means that they're paying more than 30% of their income for housing for homeowners. And also we have roughly 12,000, and again, this is current data, about 12,000 residents who are renting that are cost burden. So as we know, the need is great within our community, so that's why I think it's so critical and so key that the two housing departments are meeting, again, to kind of develop this comprehensive plan around addressing our housing issues. Here's some of the city's housing priorities. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the city's priority, and then Ms. Claudia Tuck is going to talk about some of the housing, or some of the county housing priorities as well. Here's just some of the things that we have on our priority list, some of the things within our purview that we're taking a look at. We have our ARPA allocation. As you guys are well aware, the city earmarked, of their $32 million, they earmarked $8 million towards affordable housing. And that program was presented to the commission back in last summer. And that's just for the affordable housing allocation, but there's more dollars that was in that ARPA plan as well towards affordable housing. I'm going to talk about those as well, such as the community land trust and that agreement as well. So not only do you have the ARPA in housing and community development, we focused on a lot of preservation efforts. So that's foreclosure mitigation, helping people to retain their homes, also doing home repair, whether that's through our roof replacement program or through our housing replacement program or our major rehab program. Also, we have some homeownership promotion activities. Our next home buyers education class is tomorrow as well. So if you're not busy between 8 and roughly about 3 or 4 o'clock tomorrow, you just want to sit through a housing presentation, by all means, you're welcome to come over to the Thomas Center to hear that information as well.
You better sell tickets to that one.
It's actually free, Mr. Mayor, thanks to the generosity of the commission. And so for those that are, again, that's out there that's hearing this presentation, by all means, let us know if you're interested in participating in those activities. Also, when it comes to promotion activities, we have DPA, down payment assistance, as well as developer subsidy. I want to talk to you a little bit about our funding sources. I know that our city commission are probably well versed, but just make sure that the county is well aware of some of the funding sources that we use. From the federal level, we use community development block grant, typically used by name, usually you hear CDBG. Also the Home Investment Partnership, or HOME, and the American Rescue Plan as well, the ARPA funding. From the state perspective, both the city and the county both receive the State Housing Initiative Partnership funding. Oftentimes we're utilizing that for DPA, also for some of our retention efforts, such as our home repair. Right now, I'm excited to say that on the city side of the house, through our housing and community development, we have like 26 projects in the pipeline, whether that's house replacement, whether that's major rehab, or roof replacement. So you have this funding impact slide here. So you'll see the two projects at the top there. These two groups applied for low-income housing tax credits, and we were actually able to help their application move along. It's a Deer Creek Senior Housing Project, as well as a Tumberland Creek. They applied for the local government area of opportunity, and so they were able to secure those finances, which increased their likelihood of getting those tax credits. Also, you'll see some of our housing replacement activities down at the bottom. So you see some before and after photos there as well. As I mentioned, the $8 million ARPA allocation. Again, I'm sure the city is well versed, but just want to make sure the county is aware of how we've divided up this pool of resources. We have $6 million that will go into incentivize the development of rental units. We have $1.2 million for the single family development. We also have, as you can see on the slide, we've augmented some of our owner-occupied rehab dollars with $320,000, as well as expanded our down payment assistance program. And we have a small amount for land acquisition. So that would allow the city to either acquire land to develop internally, or acquire land and transfer it over to a nonprofit or for-profit entity. Just kind of where we are with to pass. Just where we are with the, in June, I anticipate us bringing back of the $7.2 million that we have earmarked for a developer subsidy. I would anticipate in June, we'll be bringing that back before the City Commission. Right now, the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee has taken a look at those applications. We got 7 applications for roughly totaling about $11.9 million, so almost $12 million. And so we're going to dwindle that down to make a recommendation before the commission. So we're going to do both a staff recommendation as well as an AHAC recommendation. So again, that should be coming back to the commission sometime in June. The Community Land Trust, we have entered into an agreement with Bright Community Trust to administer a community land trust. We've also, within the agreement as well, we've provided them with 5 lots, and also there was $1 million of ARPA that was earmarked to help offset the development of 10 units. So at the end of the agreement with Bright Community Trust, or I shouldn't say at the end, because we want it to be something that we will have long term, but within this agreement, they're to produce at least 10 units under a community land trust model with the $1 million allocation. Home ARP. So for those participating jurisdictions that receive a direct allocation of the CDBG and Federal Home Program, there was a pool of resources through the American Rescue Plan called Home ARP. HCD staff worked with the Department of Sustainable Development to develop a plan around beefing up the opportunity to provide more housing within our community through an ADU pilot program, essentially. And so under HCD's purview, we own 5 lots. Under our purview, we have 5 lots currently. The plan is to demo those properties and maximize the density. So the plan is, if the lot was supported, we want to put an attached ADU plus a detached ADU to create 3 units. So we're replacing 1 with 3. So we're looking at that. So we're looking at $1 million to offset the cost of that. And then the remaining portion of those dollars would be used to develop permit-ready plans to incentivize landowners within our community to develop ADUs. And so we're looking at, okay, what dollars can we provide to incentivize those in exchange for affordability? What can we do? How much of a developer's incentive can we provide in order to attract those landowners to do this? I know I'm going through the slides, but if you have any questions, feel free to stop me.
Commissioner Cornell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for this information. I'm interested in kind of the details of the development, new rental housing unit incentives, and what you just mentioned, because I think the county may be a little bit behind in what we're kind of developing, because we're developing plans for a continuous funding stream. And I'm very interested in understanding, I guess, maybe I need to wait till June to see what you all bring forward, because I think if we can leverage the private incentives to build affordable housing units, which you said, which you kind of identified is the big need here. So can you just talk a little bit about kind of what was put out on the street so that our county commissioners understand?
Yeah, definitely. So with the $8 million ARPA allocation, when we came back to the commission, it was recommended by staff, after doing some research, that there's quite a bit of developers that's interested in developing affordable housing, but there's a gap. So what we said is that we would be willing to, or what we recommended to the commission that was ultimately approved, was that we would provide up to $35,000 a door in exchange for a 20-year affordability period. On the home ownership side, we said that we would provide up to $50 a door.
And how is that measured? 20-year, so $35 a door for 20-year affordable housing. And how is that measured? How's affordable housing? Is it less than 80% of AMI per rents, or what is it?
So with the ARPA allocation, you can either do 65% AMI or 300 times the poverty level, 300% the poverty level. And so for home ownership, to provide a little bit more flexibility, we went to 300% the federal poverty level. With the rental program, we capped it at 65% the AMI.
65% AMI. Okay,
correct.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You sure? Okay. All right, go ahead. Thank
Oh, I thought somebody else had a question. So also in HCD, we provide funding to outside entities. So you can see a list here of all of those entities that receive funding, whether it's housing or just other community development activities. It could be nutrition assistance. It could be youth services. So this is a list of those organizations that we provided resources through our community development block grant funding. Homeless services. Not long ago, the city manager had asked for us to look at the impacts and the cost of services that's provided to our homeless population or those that don't have a permanent place to live. And so here you can see from the various departments, and these are a list of funds that we've designated or utilized. And again, this is funding that's used to support our efforts towards homelessness. So you'll see from HCD, from Gainesville Regional Transit. You'll see from Gainesville Fire Rescue. So again, these are the dollars that's provided through the services that we're providing. Now, also through GRACE, this year, it appears that based on the information that was provided, $3.4 million will be supported or given to GRACE to support their homeless initiatives. So you can see right there a little over $1.2 million in ARPA funding that has been earmarked for GRACE, and you can see the general funds that's being provided to GRACE on an annual basis of 1.5. We have 2 citizens advisory groups. You can see when they meet there, the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee meets on the 2nd Tuesday. The Citizens Advisory for Community Development meets on the 3rd Tuesday. What really separates these 2 groups is their work around the funding sources, because all of the funding sources, as you guys are well aware, they have a committee oftentimes associated with it. So our AHAC committee governs how the city invests their SHIP allocation oftentimes, and then they also take a look at the LGAO applications as well. So that comes to the AHAC committee. The Citizens Advisory Committee for Community Development looks at how we invest our CDBG in home. So when you have entities that will apply and go through the application process, they'll make a presentation before this group. That group then makes a recommendation to the commission that ultimately decides of how those monies are invested in our community, and that's CDBG and home for the CACCD. Another thing that is before us is inclusionary zoning, although that's being handled by the Department of Sustainable Development. We all know that inclusionary zoning is for the development of 10 units or more of multifamily housing to require that a certain portion of those units be affordable. As we look at the timeline and some of the recommendations, staff is recommending that 10% be affordable at 80% or below, that all the units be affordable for 99 years, but that's going to come back before the commission, and I provided you there with a timeline, let me rephrase that. The timeline is on the next for exclusionary zoning, but the plan is to bring that back to the commission sometime during the summer. It's going through the planning board. Also, AHAC went into the 4 districts in Gainesville and provided some information to the residents about inclusionary zoning and what's being proposed. So you can see there those dates and times when that happened as well. All right, so restoration of exclusionary zoning, you have that timeline here. It appears that we'll all be back here in a couple days and for the first reading to restore exclusionary zoning. And so that process is moving forward with the restoration of exclusionary zoning. Now I'll call up Ms. Claudia Tuck to go over the county's priorities if there aren't any questions.
Okay. You're good. Welcome, Ms. Tuck.
Thank you. Chair Prezia, Mayor Ward, Commissioners, Claudia Tuck, Director, Alachua County Community Support Services. Thank you for having us here today to tell you about the work we've been doing over the past couple of months and also to help you see the similarities and differences across both sides of the street. So while you see that we have under federal funding emergency rental assistance program, that is only something that was available for the county to apply. And I'll go through all these programs individually going forward. The ARPA funds, we do have both city and county have designated some ARPA funds for housing. The county is not an entitlement community. The city is for CDBG and home. We do not have the population in the unincorporated area to meet federal guidelines for that. So all of our funding that is in comparable categories comes through the state under the Small Cities Program. The local funding we do have as the city, the infrastructure sales tax. We also have the Affordable Housing Trust, and we have a Preservation and Enhancement District. The priorities that we have in Alachua County have been established by both the funding sources and the Board of County Commissioners. And our priorities are based on home ownership preservation. A lot of these are SHIP priorities, home owner-occupied rehab. We also are looking at workforce housing, and we're defining that as 60% area median income or above. Affordable housing, which our board has prioritized 50% area median income or below. And we are also focusing on homeless preservation services as well as prevention services, as well as homeless services. And all of our homeless services are coordinated with the local homeless continuum of care, which is operated by United Way under the new name of Keys to Home. You may have known it under the previous name, the North Central Florida Alliance for the Homeless and Hungry. Under our CDBG program, we are able to apply for funding from the state in the amount of $750,000, and that is a 2 to 3 year project timeline. We just recently completed a cycle, and so you see here we actually replaced 6 homes. You see here one of the homes that was replaced in Hawthorne and another home that was replaced in Archer. Staff evaluated both of the existing structures, residents applied, and we worked through a third-party administrator to award the process. Under the SHIP program, the city and county programs basically mirror each other because we all have to follow the state guidelines for the State Housing Partnership Initiative. The county tends to get just a little bit more than the city, and it's also based on a state formula. So this year's allocation is $1.3 million, and all of the priorities, again, are established by the state. And there's a percentage allocation that's a little hard to follow, but 65% of all of the funding has to go towards home ownership activities. And attached to this agenda item, we have a little bit more detail that will explain all the different percentages that the state requires. Oh. Okay, just one slide for that. The SHIP program, just to add something to that, with the passage of Senate Bill 102, the Live Local, we do hope to see some additional funding, and at least for this area, it looks like maybe another $300,000 annually, at least for next year, 23-24 budget. Which SHIP, we've had both city and county have been awarded as low as 0 in the past several years, and as more recently, we've been ranging between $250,000 and $750,000. So this is a huge increase for both of us, and definitely a benefit to our residents. Escheated properties, we have been working to identify escheated properties. As you know, the properties that come to the county are first offered to municipalities if they're in those municipalities. And then our housing staff works with our public works staff to review the remaining parcels to see what might be available for housing. Our staff go out and evaluate the parcels, and now they are currently on a public list. We've had some individuals who have a family interest or a neighboring interest that are seeking to purchase some, and we also have some nonprofit housing companies that would like to build homes on that, and we're working through that process now. The Affordable Housing Trust, that is an entity that was established by the voters, but it was formed without any funding allocated to it 2 years ago. So the Board of County Commissioners identified during the first year that we're in now $1 million to start from general revenue. The staff took to the board and the board approved. $100,000 annually for the next 2 years for an initiative with the Housing Authority and Family Promise. And we are identifying 10 families who are highly vulnerable and on a waiting list for a housing voucher that are homeless. And so Family Promise is partnering to bring case management, and the Housing Authority is using the funds to pay the rent. And the goal is within 2 years to move them onto a permanent voucher and then take on new families. Community Blight, the board identified the Copeland community as our first pilot initiative for Community Blight. We have $500,000 established this year. Our staff have worked with the community. We've held one large community meeting, and we have identified liaisons for the community that came forward, and we've had about 4 meetings with the liaisons. We've also had a meeting with the park staff to identify what interests are in the park. And right now, we're working through the county, the citizen priorities for that area. And they're identifying one of the primary needs is water. So we are continuing to work on ways to bring water. Many of those, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with the Copeland community, but it's an area where roads are not platted, and many of the water wells are failing and septic systems are failing, and wells are contaminated. So we're trying to work with them on that. Also, we have $200,000 set aside for escheated properties where we can, again, go in and improve the properties, remove structures, and do surveys to make them available for reuse. And code enforcement, we have a project with our code enforcement to identify properties that need to be repaired, basically renovated. We also have next year in the 24 budget proposed $2 million, but that will not be approved until September. As with the city, we have our own Affordable Housing Advisory Committee, AHAC. It is an 11-member board. It meets monthly. Our Board of Commissioners asked that the AHAC be responsible for reviewing all affordable housing projects that come forward. So they will be giving input on anything that comes through the Affordable Housing Trust, through the infrastructure sales tax, as well as anything with the Housing Finance Authority. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. Here it is. The Housing Finance Authority, all counties in Florida under the Florida statutes are able to establish a Housing Finance Authority. Most have done so. It is a separate governmental entity that operates, although they most typically operate under the separate, loose relationship with the county. So our county staff actually serves as their director, and that is common in many communities because there's not enough funding to provide for staff support. It mainly gives the counties the ability to tap into state bonds. So we have right now on the street $31 million in bonds. We are part of a region, so several other surrounding counties have access to those same bonds, but over the past 3 cycles, Alachua County is the only one that's tapped into those. Here's one project that was just completed in June of last year. This was Village and Forest Green. It is now Sweetwater Square. Through these bonds, the county was able to provide $26 million in renovation. There is another project that's out there under development to renovate Harbor Cove, and that's about $20 million. Under our social services, we provide both homeless prevention and homeless services. Homeless prevention, we focus primarily on rent and utilities, but also deposit assistance to help households become housed. And we have a budget of just under $500,000. We also work closely with the Homeless Continuum of Care, and our staff lead a subcommittee to bring all of the parties in the community that provide homeless prevention services to try and coordinate and also look for ways to assess the needs to prioritize those most at risk. In our social services, we have the homeless services, which thanks to both boards over the past 4 years saw an increase of $500,000 a year for 3 years, so that now the city is fully funding GRACE at $1.5 million, and the county is funding $1.5 million towards rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing. All of the referrals for the county's program come through the Homeless Continuum of Care. We do not take referrals ourselves, and that's part of a HUD requirement that if you're going to be receiving HUD funding, that the community has to have a continuum of care, and that continuum of care has to have a coordinated entry process. So our continuum of care does. We prioritize through outreach those most vulnerable, and we, again, are receiving cases from the continuum of care for those most at risk. Our program tends to focus more on individuals because when we evaluate our point-in-time counts annually, that is the greatest need. We have the most number of individuals who are chronically homeless. Currently now, we are operating permanent supportive housing at a ratio of 1 to 15, rapid rehousing, and that's 1 case manager to 15 clients, rapid rehousing, 1 case manager to 25 clients. That varies based on the need of the household as well. And in FY22, we served 94 residents. Emergency rental assistance, that is a program that the county applied for. It's the Federal Emergency Rental Assistance Program under the U.S. Treasury. We applied for Emergency Rental Assistance 1, weren't sure if we would be awarded. We were awarded $8 million, and since then we've submitted 5 additional applications, and we have now received a total of $32 million. This funding is administered with the assistance of CRI, the third-party administrator, and we have applications taken on our website, and county staff partner closely with the third-party administrator to review the applications. All of the payments are processed through county staff and paid by the clerk. We do pay past due rent going forward, as well as past due utilities. And right now we have, in our last allocation, we have about $2.5 million left to continue to provide rental and utility assistance. The exciting thing that the Treasury came out with in October of 2022, anyone who had continued in the rounds and requested money or still had money left in their Emergency Rental Assistance 2 fund was able to use 25% of the remaining funding towards affordable housing. That cannot be used until all of the remaining 75% is fully expended or encumbered by the federal definition, which doesn't mean we're going to put $1 million towards rent. It means we are paying John Smith landlord rent next month. So it's a pretty tight encumbered, but we are really excited about it. We worked closely with the Treasury, had several meetings individually with the Treasury trying to advocate for the categories of purchase under or of the affordable housing, but the Treasury is holding firm that they will only allow affordable housing by definition to be construction, rehabilitation, and preservation. We were advocating for acquisition, but they will not allow that. But they're very excited about our model and would like to see us acquire with other funding and then do the rehabs of those projects with their funding. So we have until September of 2025 to use these funds. We also are using up to 10% on housing stability under these funds. And for that, we are looking at a program to partner with a legal aid entity nonprofit to help keep households housed. And we are going to be bringing that contract to our board in the next couple of weeks and hope to have a successful program. It will not be limited only to ERAP recipients. It will be anybody who's 80% area median income or below can access those services to help them remain housed. And the infrastructure sales tax, we anticipate through that, based on the revenue set aside by the board of 15% of the dollar or 30% of the half cent, that we will have just around $56 million in funds for that. Currently, staff are developing a draft plan to take to our AHAC committee and then back to the board. And to look at the dollars another way, to see a nice increasing graph over the 10 years. And that's the end of my presentation, and now we're open for questions.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you both for the summary and the other backup report. They're both very helpful. I do actually have some questions, Ms. Tuck, if you could stay up. Sorry, almost left.
I tried.
I do have questions about ERAP especially. I think the number you said that we have now is over 30 million?
32 million total.
32 million. How much of that has been expended or allocated?
Almost all of it.
Almost all
except
of it?
for we've spent all of it. We just were awarded in February another 5.5 million. We brought that to the board last month for a spending plan.
As far as, I guess, the accessibility of it, so it's been either spent or allocated. Allocated doesn't always, how much has actually been spent, not allocated?
I believe we spent $8 million on past due rent and utilities already.
Okay.
18 million.
18.
18.
18. Okay, I have a question as far as the accessibility of that. So I did look up your application and the documentation required. I know these are federal rules, but I do wonder if there have been just issues of accessibility because of that, or if folks have come to the commission or to the county just expressing the difficulty of actually applying. Like they have demonstrable need, but the COVID factor is difficult to demonstrate or prove.
Well, our commissioners asked that we make the program as lenient as the federal government would allow, and so we did do that. In the beginning, we had an outreach worker, and the outreach worker would go to every business that we could think of that would have individuals, bars, grocery stores, hair salons, who might be eligible for the program. We also have a case manager who is available to work with individuals coming in our lobby. Right now, if you went on it, it's not open because we just recently were given the approval to proceed. But the application is online. If somebody can't do an online application, they are able to come into our lobby and we assist them in filling it out. It has to be completed online simply because of the tracking. There is an incredible amount of reporting that has to be done to the federal government on this. But in the beginning, we had a full lobby and a full conference room of people applying. We had a bank of computers everywhere.
And now? I know you're currently closing.
It's not open right now.
The most recent.
It was not as significant, but the money is not the same amount either. We had much larger tranches of funds in the beginning, and there was much more need. I mean, we are not seeing as much need because it does have to be COVID related. There's certain things that are caveats from the U.S. Treasury we have no control over changing.
So I guess as far as that COVID need, I'm assuming you keep numbers of like just contacts, like how many people reach out and you have to like reject them because like this isn't COVID related. Do you keep any records of what that looks like in comparison?
They're all maintained in the database. We're really working with individuals to demonstrate. I mean, if they lost a couple of hours work, they have a letter from an employer that they were laid off because of COVID. I mean, that hasn't been really the biggest challenge.
Sorry, I think maybe I misspoke. My concern is more if you say like there's rental assistance and people go, I did just lose my job, or like I did get fewer hours. It's not necessarily COVID related, but they try anyway. Do you keep track of those folks that you rejected and have that reason like it's not COVID related? I'm trying to see as far as data, if you're showing a need for rental assistance, it's just not COVID related, and if you're tracking those numbers to look at future programming.
I would have to look back at the numbers, but the majority of the individuals that were rejected were not for that. It was more ineligibility for a variety of reasons, including really living in Colorado. We have a lot of creative people. We have people from England that are living here.
Okay.
But the address is in England.
I was more like, it was the focus more on the data to see what we could learn from it moving forward.
Understood.
But, thank you. I think as far as the homelessness services, could you describe a little more, because I'm looking at because it says, I'm looking back at the memo and trying to, because it's a more succinct summary. That 94 were housed, and that is the medium and long-term housing, like medium
Correct.
term with medium-term case management and long-term case management.
Correct.
Are there other services that are provided by those case managers? Or I guess whatever case management they have, is it housing specific, or does it have other wraparound services?
They're 100% dedicated to their caseload. So if they have 15 permanent supportive housing clients, they've taken them to apply for Social Security benefits. They take them to a doctor. They take them to the grocery store. They teach them how to clean their house. They help them connect them with cooking lessons. They have connected them with literacy. Everything a case manager does. They have no other caseload.
Okay.
They're 100% dedicated.
And this is primarily for chronic homelessness, so I guess the extreme end of homeless situations.
And all of these individuals are referred through the homeless continuum of care as being the most vulnerable. So the continuum of care works through the list with the highest scoring, most vulnerable. And there's a meeting every 2 weeks. Case managers meet together that have availability on their caseload to take on new clients, meet with the homeless continuum of care, and they're assigned a case, and they work with the outreach team to locate the individual.
Okay. Thank you. And then I think I have one for Mr. Harris, if he doesn't mind. Sorry. As far as our numbers on homelessness services, because I just have questions of the funds expended. Sorry, PDF does not want to work with me. I just have to go slow. As far as funds expended on the homelessness part, I think I want to clarify impact versus expense. So impact to our budget is clear, as opposed to impact to the community or impact to a person. So when we say GFR spent 163,000, is that through CRP? Is that through number of calls made out to assist someone?
That's
Like,
through a
where's
collection of those services that they provided. So it could be
the whole spectrum.
Yeah.
It could be anything.
Right. So anytime they touch, because you know that Chief Dixon is on the COC, and so any services that they're providing to the homeless population,
We calculate
that's in
the
this
cost.
number, right?
Okay.
So,
it can,
staff time, it's
so it can be any wide range of things.
correct.
So RTS, for example, it could be we provide bus vouchers for whatever, or it could be like actual staff time coordinating.
Yes.
It could be any wide range of things, not necessarily funds given directly to housing an individual.
Correct.
Okay. I guess I'm just interested then if you could go into further detail of what that would look like for Parks and Rec. And I know Public Works, I can imagine any number of things Public Works does. And same with Housing and Community Development, but I think I'm more curious about how Parks comes in.
So
Parks
I
is
didn't
never
know
end.
somebody else was coming up. So from Parks and Rec, it could be cleaning the park, or it could be, as a result of homeless population being there, straightening up.
So more
It could be
cleanup.
repairing things that are damaged by a homeless population that city staff has used their time with. For HCD, it's staff time to administer the $1.5 million grant. So
Okay. So thank you. I thought it would be something like that, which is why I'm a little iffy about the slide itself, because it's not necessarily how services that we are impacting so much as how the situation impacts us and our costs, which are two different things. These, and I realize that they are funds expended around homelessness as the issue, but I think as far as transparency and getting information out to our constituents and the community at large, it's not very clear or transparent what we mean by that. Because the time and funds spent every time an engine has to be deployed somewhere because someone has fallen or has to have assistance at Grace or where have you, that is very different than us. That is an impact to us as the city, not necessarily direct funds that we are giving out. Same with parks cleaning up. And that's not, probably sounds harsher than I mean. It was just a clarity issue that I'd really like to, and Andrew's coming up to relieve you.
Mr. Mayor, I did want to point out that $950,000 from Public Works, a large chunk of that goes to Grace. It is specifically improvements at Grace or cleanup related.
I know that one. I mean, like the others,
The others are as
are a little
Mr.
more
Harris
continuous. I'm
indicated.
assuming of
Exactly.
regular. The every is this per year?
Yes.
Yeah. So that no, I understand. I can see that. I can read that. I meant the rest of the not a million, but it is a continuous average cost of just the everyday expense the city bears with that issue.
Right. Absolutely.
I can do quick math, but do we know what that is without the 950,000? I'm not. Almost $500,000?
Yeah.
Ballpark?
About that.
Okay, so about $500,000 is the daily impact to our services to general government.
Correct. And these are things obviously that are not budgeted for necessarily because they're
It's as they pop up.
Right.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, that was it. I just wanted to clarify what that one looked like because it was not openly clear, but thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Right, Commissioner Willetts, is that you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the county also do a similar kind of estimation of homeless services impact that are similar to what we do at the city?
Relative to staff spending time, no. I mean, with Chief Dixon, he and I both serve on the Homeless Continuum of Care, for instance, the Governance Board. You would not see my time in that.
Okay, thank you.
That's all, okay. I'm not, whoever's number 9 down there, I don't know, Commissioner Wheeler, okay.
Have a question for both of you folks in terms of the renters' rights and the codes enforcement that we're doing. Have we seen any housing been returned? Have they actually sold rentals like they were concerned about doing if we imposed these codes on them? You know, we heard from a lot of our landlords that they would have to sell and have to move on. I just wondered if we were actually getting more housing on the market now as a result of what we're asking folks to do.
Mr. Mayor, so we've certainly heard that that discussion, you know, both from individual property owners as well as realtors over time. That's not something that we track. So, you know, we're charged with enforcing the program and the minimum housing code and energy efficiency standards. You know, anything I could tell you would be completely anecdotal, essentially what we're hearing in terms of like, well, you know, I'm going to turn it over.
Have you got any thoughts about it in terms of the anecdotes even? Because I know that a lot of that was anecdotal when we were first trying to implement it. And I just didn't know. And as I was thinking about it, I thought, okay, good. We've got more housing than on the market for people who actually want to buy rather than rent.
I can tell you, since the city has taken over the inspection side, we're averaging about 30 or 40 inspections a week, and we're ramping up in terms of, there is as I'm sure county can appreciate, there is quite a bit of staff training and certification that has to be done before we go out in the community and start doing energy audits and things like that. So we're staffed up, but we're still working on getting a few staff members with that credential, but we're still running about 30 to 40 inspections a week now. So we're up and running in the community doing that kind of work. Mostly what we're seeing is a lot of, a combination of some energy efficiency issues that are mostly minor we try to address when we're there. But then we also are seeing a portion of those with major housing violations that are, you know, health, life, safety, welfare type of things, and we're trying to address those as quickly as possible. As far as the effect of the program on the overall supply of housing, both rental or for sale, I couldn't speculate. It would just be anecdotal.
I got you. Thank you so much for at least that, because I've been really curious to know if really indeed, you know, folks are going to just throw in the towel and walk away.
Right.
Which would be to our advantage if we could get some more housing out there, maybe perhaps even affordable.
Sure.
Thank you. Claudia, have we seen anything? Have we any?
Chair, Mayor, what we've done, our program is just starting, so I can't really speak to the program, that's in another department, but what we've done to try and prevent loss of affordable housing is to offer funding under the ARPA for emergency, for energy efficiency, climate change, in the category where landlords can receive up to $15,000, I believe it is, for upgrades to their units, as long as they agree to retain the affordability based on a factored number of years that they tied into the amount they borrow.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wheeler.
Mr. Mayor.
Chair Prezia.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that I guess I was actually going to ask about that. I was going to say I think we were missing that as one of the things that we're doing. I think that ties into affordable housing and energy efficiency. That was missing, so I was going to bring that up. So thank you for bringing that up. The other question I had, and it's a little bit of an aside, but when we do the things like the bond initiative through our affordable housing, through like when we're accessing state bonds, like when we did the Sweetwater project. Do we ever look at those projects as opportunities to then provide wraparound services? Like think about those as target projects to collaborate with that developer to provide other services? I'm just thinking about the fact that we have an investment we've made in that property, and then there's people who live there who just got a brand new apartment, it's renovated and new, and the opportunity to sort of start anew with that group of people in terms of dialogue around financial literacy, around after school programs for kids, thinking holistically like we're doing with Copeland, to identify a community approach. Has that ever been tried here locally?
Chair, Mayor, when the entities receive the money, there's often requirements for them to do some types of classes, childcare, having community centers. We have not set aside funds to be able to do that kind of program there, but we do monitor those agencies or entities when they receive our funding. So they have to, any
Based on
entity
the
that receives, based on the requirements, yes.
Okay, thank
And most
you.
of them, when we've met with them, I think some of you were there at the grand opening of Sweetwater, showed us the different classrooms and activities they had for them, and they were wanting to engage the residents.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Prizia. Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One follow-up question. I know that as far as the city, when looking at ADUs, we're having those permit-ready kind of ADA accessible units, and that is something that we are trying to prioritize. And I did notice in the photos provided by the county that some of those, I think it's CDBG redone rehabs, some do look ADA accessible. Is that a priority that we are trying to encourage, given that some of our most vulnerable communities do have ADA limitations one way or another? Are we trying to emphasize a preference for that kind of accessibility being incorporated into rehab or projects?
We have a third-party administrator that handled our last round, and he put out, there was an application for residents to apply, and then they were evaluated based on need. All the homes were evaluated for whether they could be repaired or needed to be rebuilt, and then it's really resident need. So if there is someone who lives in the home, because they're owned, if there is a need for accessibility, then like the one you see with the ramp entrance. But we wouldn't do that to every home. It's the homeowner's choice.
It wouldn't be a proactive thing.
It wouldn't be, because it's the homeowner's choice. This is their home and it's how they want it. They get to pick and they're involved in it.
So as far as the other, I guess, other programs that are like for new construction moving forward, and I'm thinking larger, I'm thinking in terms of moving forward, because I know sustainable development is trying to do it with ADUs. They're trying to have that option of here's a free plan, go ahead. This helps. This is the broadest and most accessible use of a property. I'm wondering if moving forward, not necessarily homeowner occupied at the time, but those like community land trust or any kind of new build that we move forward to put out into the community, either rental or owner occupied, if that is or has been at all considered as a preference consideration, because I hadn't thought about it until a couple of months ago when sustainable development mentioned it for ADUs. I'm thinking moving forward that is, so I sit on AHAC and I went to at least one of those community meetings about folks, and what I heard is senior housing and housing for seniors, and I've been hearing it for the last, what year is it, like 6-7 years, that is the primary need, either for seniors or those with other ability limitations. So I'm wondering if it's come up at all as a consideration to make that a preference consideration or a priority consideration, or a potential point booster requirement in future proposals.
Chair, Mayor, we follow, again, the funding entities. For instance, SHIP has a category of special needs, and they prioritize veterans and seniors and disabled. So certainly those would be built towards that. And then, of course, we also follow the zoning codes.
I guess my concern is like, are we trying to go above and beyond what is just required? Or is it a limitation?
I'm going to turn to the city for the community land trust, because we don't have any that would fall on that right now.
You did 6, right?
In theory. This is my last one.
So as we look from a rehab perspective, there's certain components of the house that we kind of evaluate. And so from a rehab perspective, home ownership retention, it's accessibility, it's plumbing, it's roof, it's the major components of a house. First and foremost, look for code violations to rehab. From an ADU perspective, that's one of the things that we talked about, that we would make some of the units, or make sure that the plans that are permit ready will have accessibility components to them, because we want to make sure that they're accessible to those that desire to have them, so.
But moving, I guess it probably just wasn't me explaining. I'm just wondering if staff on either side of the road has really looked at that as we want our communities to be able to age in place. We don't want our communities to find their homes like, well, this doesn't have an elevator and I live on the 3rd floor. If moving forward, there has been any consideration of that being a priority, other than just at the ADU level and other housing activity, because I don't know if at that point it's us meeting the bare minimum of like, this is what we're required to do, we will do no more, or we are limited and we cannot consider that. And if somewhere in between that window, we have the opportunity to consider ADA accessibility and other accessibility measures as, so I've gone out with a CRP, and accessibility is a problem. So I wonder if somewhere in between that window of, this is what we're required to do, this is what we are limited from doing, that has been part of the conversation of what we want to see in new
Yes,
or rehab.
it has been a part of the conversation, but at some point, oftentimes we're looking at those standards, and so we want to meet those standards, and anything above and beyond that could be cost prohibitive for projects. So, of course, anytime we're working with a constituent, we want to make sure that we make it as accessible for them as humanly possible.
All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Willetts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There was made mention of the Live Local Act that is new. It is very new, but I wondered if either the county or the city staff, has there been any conversation from any developers that have started to reach out about wanting to utilize that for projects that we may not be used to thinking of because it may be in commercial or in industrial areas, that the state has now opened up some of that ability to bypass what the city or county thinks or prefers or whatever, because of the Live Local Act. Has any of that bubbled through any yet? I know it's very new, but I was just curious.
So I can't speak for the county, but I could say I don't believe yet, because it's still relatively new, and I think the few folks that I've spoken to are still reading through and applying it to a local context. But I would say there are I think developers looking at that and looking at areas of the city where it might be applicable, because it's a little bit there's some of the provisions of the bill aren't 100% sort of cut and dry. You have to apply it to your local context and looking at available property. But I think it is being looked at, but nobody's come to us and said, I've got a great deal. Once this passes, I'm like submit an application tomorrow. So, but yeah, it's like everything else. I think from a regulatory standpoint, it's another sort of potential tool in the toolbox, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Parsons.
Chair, Mayor, it's basically the same thing for the county. We're really not aware of any. Truly, staff focus more on what the impact would be to our SHIP program.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Willetts. Chair Prezia.
Ms. Tuck, I was just going to quickly ask you, which is another project that wasn't on our list, but with our permanent supportive housing project with the hotel that we're renovating, what percentage of those units are going to be accessible?
We have to follow code. almost defer to Dan, it's either 4 or 6. There's 31 units. It's
Okay.
following code.
Okay. You might, is there a reason why we can't do more if we're? I guess I'm just thinking about the population we're serving and many of them being veterans or disabled in some way, shape or form. The possibility, it just occurred to me. Anyway, that's one of those projects that I could see where your point of the accessibility may come into play and be useful to think about before we start construction. So just a thought. Thank you.
Commissioner Wheeler.
I just wanted to follow up a question that Commissioner Willits was asking. I'm wondering if the Tech City project that Mitch Glazer has got going on out there in terms of having a work site and then housing right there on the same properties, is that what you are asking about? Because that's the only project I can think of, but it is in Alachua. And right now the businesses are being built. The phase that they're in now is building the last of the buildings for the offices. You know, the daycare center out there, they have the pub out there. But they're also, the last phase is going to be putting housing in for the people who are actually working on that site outside of Alachua. If you all haven't seen it, it's quite a project. It really is. So I don't know if that's the closest that we're talking about in terms of having housing there to accommodate, but it is happening out there.
Chair Mayor, that would fall under what we were looking at in the infrastructure sales tax. When we look at the possibility of housing for workforce development under economic development, so that we could provide housing near employers that might be coming into the community, as well as to starting teachers, daycare workers.
Right. So we have started that. We really are.
The concept, but.
Yes, right. We're looking at it. It's happening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So we have a couple of items, just before I open this up to the public, that were not part of the presentation, that are worth talking about. We briefly mentioned inclusionary zoning on a slide. We have two projects being built as components of larger structures that are going up, either going up now or about to go up, that include 10%. It's 10%. 10% of the units are affordable housing at, I forget what level of AMI.
I think one of them is at 60.
Yeah, they're targeted AMI and not to exceed, and administered through the housing authority, which is, it's not a huge number of units, but it's already happening. I mean, these are in the pipeline. They're actually being built. There are a few other things that are on the way to being built that we don't know exactly how many affordable housing units there'll be. But for instance, the building that'll be at Lot 10 down off Southwest First Avenue, those are in process as well, and a significant number, and I forget how many, but a significant number of those units are tagged at a particular ceiling of AMI. So there are things happening. Unfortunately, if you know the numbers, as most of us do, I think, we're not making a big dent. So we have to stay on top of this. But it's important to remember, too, that we entirely changed the way we approach housing affordability at the City of Gainesville a little more than a year ago. We brought Mr. Harris on and really built out the housing department at the City of Gainesville. For most of my time here on the dais, we administered grants and did what we could, and built a program here and there with the My Neighbor program and heirs property issues and those sorts of things. But we didn't really supercharge this thing until fairly recently. So it's important to note how far we have come in a relatively short period of time, and I'm proud of the work we've done. It may not seem like a ton, but there's a whole lot still to be done. All right, let's hear from the public. And I see no other lights here. Okay, would everybody signed up? All right, we will. I figured you would want to. Come on up. Yeah.
I'd just like to ask if any of the terrible 3 strikes against the last proposal I heard for inclusionary zoning has been amended. That is, that it had no ownership component whatsoever, that it was aiming at 80% rather than 50% AMI, and that it was looking for only a 10% proportion. Has any of those deficiencies been corrected?
We have worked hard not to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. My hope is that we'll have a whole lot more opportunities that move forward that are open to a lot more folks. Anyone else? Okay, thank you all for your time and attention on this, particularly staff. You put a lot of effort into bringing this forward, and I appreciate it. Appreciate everyone's questions. And Madam Clerk, before we move into the next one, just a housekeeping item. I am good for about another half hour, and then I'm going to have to go be on a panel for climate change discussion. And I know that our very capable Mayor Pro Tem will jump in for me. But I wanted to let you know I'm not just slipping out. There's actually another thing I'm going to. So as we move forward, Madam Clerk, let's go ahead and read this next one in.
Our next item is 203-369, infrastructure and wild spaces public places surtax update, with a recommendation that the commission receive a presentation from staff.
Mr. Mann.
Mr. Mayor, Madam Chair, Commissioners, if I could get the infrastructure surtax update presentation brought up, that would be great. It's a pleasure to be here in front of you all today to talk about something that we all worked hard on last year, and it's starting to come to fruition. Just an overview for everybody to remember, on November 8th, a countywide referendum for the 1% surtax was passed. It went into effect on January 1st, and it'll be in effect till December 31st of 2032. It's projected to generate $17.4 million a year, which is $8.7 million a year for wild spaces, public places, and $8.7 million a year for infrastructure. On the city side, the infrastructure surtax project list for FY23 was approved by the Commission at the General Policy Committee meeting on February 9th. So, and just so everybody knows the order of events, Betsy's going to give an update on the wild spaces, public places side. I'm going to talk about the infrastructure side. So, adopted on the February 9th General Policy meeting was the Phalanx Building for GFR Admin and Safety and Training Bureaus. As everybody remembers, those buildings are in need of replacement. We were looking at the Phalanx Building. I think we discussed with the Commission last week, we are moving away from the Phalanx Building, and we're going to build our own administration building on property we already own. And we'll be bringing more information to you on that at a future update to get formal approval on that. We're also looking at buying property for GFR Station 9 in the Southwest. That's been in the city's budget for a couple of years, so that money will be spent on that, which will be a Southwest Public Safety Services Hub, which will include Fire Station 9, a police substation, a community room, and a little space for Public Works and Department of Transportation to use. We are currently seeking design consultants to do the design work that the Commission approved, and that is for the Southwest Public Safety Services Center. Instead of the Phalanx Building renovations, it'll be for a new GFR administration building at a location that we'll be proposing to you at a future meeting. We're going to resurface North Main Street from 39th Avenue to 53rd Avenue. If you're familiar with that section of road, it's unraveling, so we need to do that sooner than later. Northeast 9th Street, University Avenue to Northeast 23rd Avenue. We will be working with the Commission and doing some community outreach on what that road will look like, and mill and resurface it and change it to the configuration that the Commission and the community directs us to do. On the E-Heady project site, and after the ViStar presentation, I thought maybe she was going to be talking about E-Heady, but for one of the things we've talked about is a possibility of an Eastside fire station on the RTS Transfer Hub site, and also possibly home for the community paramedicine program. So those things are still in work. A Public Works hurricane hardened building and GPD's property and evidence building, which they've outgrown. One of the things we talked about at the February 9th meeting was the housing portion of this. And on the infrastructure side, my understanding is, and we discussed this, is the allocation allows us to set aside 10% of the surtax for use on housing, and that is for the purchase of property. We're working with we're going to ask our attorney to advise us on a couple of things regarding to that, and we're going to start setting aside the funding as soon as we start getting the money. Current activity, funding availability. We're waiting for the first receipt of money from the state. The staff has been told approximately sometime in April or May. We're identifying property in the Southwest Gainesville for the Public Safety Services Center, and the solicitation for the RFP is currently on the street, and that closes on April 18th, which is tomorrow. Once that contract for the RFP is executed, staff will start issuing task orders for the design projects. And the Alachua County Commission will be talking about the non-recurring municipal partnership program. And they'll be discussing that at the May 23rd, 2023 program. And we will be participating in that program based upon how the county commission is going to direct that it goes forward. And I believe that is everything. The next time I give you an update, hopefully we have started working on some things, and I'm excited to do some groundbreaking and some ribbon cutting for projects.
Very good. We do have a whole other presentation on the other side of wild space, public places too. Commissioner Cornell, did you have a question for this one? Okay. Commissioner Cornell.
So, Phil, I heard last time we spoke, you came over to the county, we were talking about our master plan in the Felix building. Asked for 30 days. I think you added a couple of days because we want to make sure that we're in sync. Did I hear you correctly? Did this commission give you direction you're not pursuing the Felix building?
We have not, yes, we've gotten direction from the commission to move forward from pursuing that building.
Okay, so if we then pursue it, there won't be any conflict between the two boards?
We communicated with your staff last week that we had made that decision and communicated it with our commission to move forward with it.
I'm seeing head nods. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Secondly, on the housing piece, I'm excited to hear you guys. So you guys have allocated 10% of the second half cent to housing, because is that right? And I heard you say you're limited to 10%. I thought we were doing 30%, but I don't know if there's any limitations. Has that direction been given by the city commission to do 10%, or is that just, are you still discussing it?
The direction we got at the February 9th meeting is to set aside the 10%, and that's always obviously subject to change.
Okay, so it's not limited to that, it's just whatever the commission decides. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Did you want to add to that?
I just wanted to add to that my understanding, what we were provided from our attorney, I don't know if anybody from our attorney's office is here, but, but I believe it's 15% of the total, and we have half set aside for parks and recreation and wild spaces, and so the other half penny is for infrastructure, and so we're actually able to set aside 30% of that half penny for affordable housing, which is what I believe in our presentation will talk about. But just so that it's clear, it's 10% was not the total. Am I correct in that, sir? Yeah, I'm asking you.
Good afternoon, Dave Forziano with the County Attorney's Office, Mr. Mayor and Madam Chair. The way that the ordinance is set up, you're correct, that half of the penny goes toward wild spaces. The other is for, miscellaneous infrastructure projects, which are identified in the ordinance that was adopted and passed by resolution. 15% of that half penny is for economic development programs, which the county has extrapolated to mean workforce housing type programs. And that is not the only use you could use for it. With the economic development, that is certainly a permissible use. My understanding is that what the board did by simple motion, it's not in the ordinance, so it's subject to change, is you've taken that half-cent penny for the miscellaneous infrastructure and you've divided it 70% for road projects, 30% for affordable housing. Now, the ordinance does allow under that half penny allocation for what's traditionally known as affordable housing under the surtax, which is buying land. So with that 30% allocation, you could buy land. You could use all of it for buying land, or you can allocate some of that toward the economic development programs as well. It's really within your discretion. What the law does is it places a limit on how much you can spend toward economic development. So you can't spend any more than 15% toward economic development of the surtax dollars.
So up to 30% could be spent on buying land, but 15% could be spent on other economic development activities related to workforce housing, like construction.
Yes, and your staff, I believe, has looked at other projects around the state of Florida where other communities have adopted this workforce housing approach. And there's a wide range of things you could do. Grants with developments, something that's maybe akin to the Eco Loop, where you put infrastructure in place in the ground and maybe land that you would buy and then make it available for affordable housing.
Right.
There's a lot of different options, and I think your staff is working on developing those and bringing them forward to you.
Thank you.
35,000 a door, like we heard Corey present, that could be one.
I think we have to own
Good. Commissioner Willits?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This slideshow had a pretty blank beginning, and the one for Wild Spaces has a beautiful, lovely logo. So I want to talk about logo and branding again. Sorry I didn't catch the name from the county, but he mentioned miscellaneous infrastructure projects. And I know I've tried to say infrastructure surtax more and more and more, but I'm going to continue to harp on it. And I hope to hear something from my county colleagues about, I feel like we are still missing the opportunity to brand that other half cent so that people can see and know, so that on the county side, if roads get fixed and the wild spaces, public places, but just for people to really understand the reason why the county could, fix a road is because you voted on it. It's not just normal part of the budget. On the city side, some of what we may be doing about, particularly for fire and rescue, the reason why this got built is because you voted on it, not just that they found it in the budget. On the city side, we have some budgetary opportunities and challenges, and they're going to say, you cut your budget by this much. Where did you find this extra money? And infrastructure sales surtax, it just doesn't quite roll off the tongue. We certainly don't have a nice logo for it to kind of let people know. So I still think we are missing an opportunity. So I'm going to keep on bringing that up. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, may it please Commissioner Willits to know that staff is working with our communications and marketing staff. We've looked at the Wild Spaces Public Places logo and the staff that developed that. We're trying to develop something that's a companion, but so that you can differentiate the two programs, but realize they're both the surtax programs.
Very good. Thank you. Chairperson?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's move on to the City Wild Spaces presentation. Welcome, Ms. Waite.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Madam Chair, and Commissioners. Oh, wonderful. Okay. Yeah, appreciate you having me this afternoon. Just going to take a few minutes to give you an update on what I think are some very exciting projects. A few projects that have completed, what we have underway, and what is in the works in our work program, and what the future looks like. So these are just a handful of projects we completed within the last 11 months. Our City Commission received an update on this in February, so I'm not going to go into too much detail this afternoon. If there are specific questions, I could definitely field those. And if I don't hear anything, I'll keep the presentation moving. Okay. So this is a handful of projects that are currently in construction that we're really excited about. So the H. Spurgeon Cherry Pool Aquatic Center renovations. This project has been in construction for a little over a year, and it would be wrapping up in just a handful of weeks. So this is a pretty large project, $1.5 million, and it is a full reconstruction, a gut and renovation of the existing building. The pool liner was replaced. We're getting new pool pumps. It's going to look like a brand new facility, and this is opening and coming online in just a couple weeks. Really close, just finishing up some final permits. So this is a photo taken about a week ago showing the front of the building. And we're getting close. All right, so I'm going to jump over to the Albert Ray Massey Park Playground. We appreciate many of you joining us this past Friday for the official ribbon cutting of this $2.1 million project. So this is our first lit boundless playground in the city of Gainesville. So this is a rendering showing our vision, and this is what is actually here today. So if you haven't seen it, definitely encourage you to go check it out.
It is indeed lit.
It is.
Just made my children cringe when I did that.
Another good project we have that is well in the works is the addition of a restroom at Unity Park. This is off of Northeast 31st Avenue. And this is a rendering showing what the restroom looks like. We have the building on site, and our contractor just working on finalizing all those utility connections. A little more challenging than they had anticipated, but this restroom will be online shortly. And I think it'll be very well used and received by the community. All right, there we go. So our largest project that's currently in construction is Forest Park. So this is off of 20th Avenue and 43rd, or 20th Avenue and 43rd Avenue, 43rd Street, sorry. And this includes the renovation of those existing soccer fields, adding field lighting, addition of a 2/3 size field. So you're actually gonna have 4 fields at the renovated facility, replacing all of the turf, irrigation improvements. We're getting shade structures over the bleachers, additional bleachers at that facility. Also going to be restriping the basketball courts and adding some dual-use pickleball basketball courts. I think those will see a lot of use in the future. Also going to have lighting in the parking lots. 7 water fountains are coming to that facility, as well as some landscaping benches and other improvements. And this project is completing in the fall. So we have some drone photos. So we are getting close to being halfway complete with this project. So if you haven't driven by, it's really exciting. All the sports lights have been erected, and it's coming along very nicely. All right. Another sports lighting project that we have is underway at Possum Creek Skate Park. So this project kicked off just a couple weeks ago. It's lighting the skate park and also the parking lot and a path to the restroom, so that facility can be open, especially during the winter hours, but open later into the evening. And so this photo was taken about a week and a half ago. So you'll see if you go by there today, so there are the 3 sports light poles that are in place, and this is showing the electrical panel. Most of the work is underground, not super exciting to see, but will be coming online in just a few weeks. So by summer, we will have a lit skate park. So this is a small project we also have under construction. So Ann Park is located in the Northwood Pines neighborhood, so not too far away from Northside Park. And this is a partnership project. So our park staff have been working with public works staff. So thanks to Phil and Brian. So we are adding some accessible pathways through the park. And we're also adding a new swing set to include a bucket swing. So there's a handful of parents in the neighborhood that reached out to us. They have children with special needs. So we worked with them to choose specific equipment that their children can utilize, to include some musical instruments. So it's a small project, and this is a small neighborhood park. But again, I think it's gonna be really well received from the community. So I won't go into detail here unless there's specific questions. Wanted to let everyone know. So we have 15 projects that are funded from kind of the previous round of Wild Spaces that we have that are in the works in some stage of planning, design, or maybe even procurement. A few of these projects are going to be starting very soon. So the Tom Petty Park Softball Field Improvement Project actually kicked off this morning. If you've driven by Tom Petty Park, there's a lot of activity, very exciting, as redoing the softball fields, adding accessible pathways to bleachers, adding shade over the bleachers, and a couple other improvements. So that project just kicked off this morning about 7 o'clock. We also just received approval from the City Commission to purchase some pool slides, and we're also excited to be starting work on the Hippodrome Theater, renovating the cinema and providing some accessibility improvements in the restrooms on the first and second floors starting in early May. So I'm going to pause here if there's any specific questions, or else I'll keep it moving.
Commissioner Cornell. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Commissioner Book.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is really just a very, very brief comment. It's not lost on me that often we're dealing with things like land use and zoning and conflict over budget, and this is precisely the type of presentation and the information that kind of restores trust in what we do with monies and dollars and staff. The way we handle the money, the way that the staff has dealt with wild spaces, public places for years, long before I got up here as a new person to the dais, is why it got revoted. So really, the comment is, good job in what we do. And even our strategic planning and the projects we look ahead really balances all kinds of recreation for all kinds of recreational users. And I think it's terrific. That's my comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to kind of echo those comments. I really appreciate the outreach in the neighborhoods and then customizing that park for the users. I think that's really, really critical. I know each of my county commission colleagues are really excited when you said pickleball, because we talk about that a lot across the street, and they really want us to make sure that we're building lots of pickleball courts, permanent pickleball courts, and lighted too if you have that opportunity. I know a bunch of pickleball players are probably reaching out to you, so every opportunity you can, thank you for doing that. And we're probably, I guess, a little bit behind you. The City Commission may not know, but we actually gave some policy direction to actually double our funding for the active park funding. We were, historically, the grand bargain was 90% conservation, 10% active park on the county side. Through our discussion, and we now actually have a master plan, we changed that direction, and so we've doubled it. We're now going to be doing 80-20, which may not seem like a lot, but it's actually a lot when you double your funding for parks. And so I'm really excited to see all of the construction. The park that y'all did at Westside, I sent the mayor a note, we had a little conversation about it, is amazing and great and just really, really good. And I want to thank your staff, commissioners, for just the great work that they're doing in our city. So,
Thank you very much, Commissioner.
thank you for the pickleball courts.
Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Betsy. As far as specifics, for Forest Park, I see it on the little site map that the facilities wise, but are we doing anything with landscaping or shade structures? Because it's hot out there. It's kind of a barren field.
Yep, so at Forest Park, we'll be adding shade structures over the bleachers and over the bench seating. Okay. So yes, I don't know the exact number of shade structures, but
But there will be some shade.
Many shade structures,
Okay. As
yes.
someone who used it a couple of times, thank you. And then I guess the second one is, as far as the lighting overhaul, is that going to be kind of like in that planning study assessment period where we're looking at where we would need it, where would it make sense, what it would cost, or do we have, I guess, how far into that park and field lighting grand overhaul, because we got a lot of them and lights are expensive.
Yes.
Kind of where are we in that?
So we're going to be bringing that project forward to you for approval soon, in the next month or two, hopefully. We've been having discussions with Musco Sports Lighting for the last, 3 to 4 months, if not longer. So staff has an ongoing list of needs and parks where they feel like they can get the most additional usage, either by, adding a multi-purpose lit field, which is our #1 request that we cannot fill enough of, and just updating existing lights that are just kind of past their prime and making them more energy efficient and just better quality lighting for users. So we're going to be bringing forward a proposal to seek your approval on that would be upgrading lighting and extending lighting at 5 existing city parks. And this is kind of a phase 1 of our lighting overhaul. We can't get everything for what is budgeted, so we see there being kind of a phase 2 lighting overhaul, a couple years down the road, but we're trying to hit our highest priorities.
I know you can't hit all the parks, even if we gave all the money to just lighting. Things I've learned in this job. Lights are expensive, but no. So we're going to do phase 1 is going to be for 5 parks that we've chosen. And that is expansion of lighting options and upgrade.
That is
only
correct.
for 5 parks.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Betsy and Phil, for your presentations. I really did want to say thank you, too, on behalf of the folks from District 1 who had asked specifically for that restroom. It means a lot to me when we respond directly to the community. And I think right off the top of my head, I can think of about 2, maybe even 3 instances where staff has done that. So thank you. I remember Unity Park was the restroom. You responded with this. There was also a fencing situation there. You responded with that. Clarence R. Kelly, the community members wanted to see some protective fencing around one of the ponds. We have responded. So thank you for these relatively rapid responses to serious community concerns. I have one question, and I'm sure you've probably fielded this before. If you would just refresh my memory. How do we prioritize the projects that are getting funded on this list? How are we prioritizing?
Great question, Commissioner. So I'm going to go into that just really high level in the coming slides. So we just finished up. So Leslie Ladendorf and Roxy Gonzalez, they led the update to the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Master Plan. And that involved a community-wide survey, statistically valid by district, also included a series of community engagement meetings, and a couple other tools to really receive information from the community on what the community's priorities are by district, by age group, and a bunch of other statistics. And so that's going to help guide the future project list that we're going to bring before you. And so I'm going to get to that in just a few slides. That's a great leading question.
Thank you very much. I conclude.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, so another list just showing projects that are already budgeted that we have in the way with different, most of these projects are a little bit further on down the road, so they're in either early stages of design or in preliminary planning. I just wanted to note on this one slide, so we do have 2 trail segments that were county-city partnership projects from the previous round of Wild Spaces funding. So what is currently called the Sweetwater Recreational Trail, which could very well be renamed, but those are 2 partnership trail projects.
And we have a conversation about Thelma Bolton next Thursday, is that accurate?
Yes, coming up on the 27th, which is a large discussion. So we're looking forward to that.
Pack a lunch.
Okay, and then the master plan update. So it was a great leading question by Commissioner Desmond Duncan Walker. So staff has just been hard at work hearing from the community and getting all of that input, which is really important with us helping to develop a list of prioritized projects to bring before you for a discussion in the coming months. And so on May 11th, there's going to be a discussion led by my fellow staff, Leslie Ladendorf and Roxana Gonzalez, to discuss the update to the master plan and what we learned and what we heard from the community. And using all of that information, we have started to generate a list, which is still a work in progress, of our project priorities for 2024 through 2026. And that discussion, I believe, is going to be on June 8th. And then we'll hear your input, and then we'll adjust accordingly. But we're excited looking into the future, and we've heard from a lot of very passionate individuals. So it's been really great feedback. And I believe Phil alluded to, we have a future discussion coming up. We're going to be discussing some partnership projects for this round of Wild Spaces. So we've already started kind of thinking about some potential projects for the $3 million dedicated funding, and then the allocation that's divided up from all the municipalities and what projects have county-wide benefits. So we'll have that discussion, I think, pretty soon. I think I saw May. All right, where the clicker needs to, there we go. This is just a visual representation of kind of the 2 guiding principles that help show us what we can fund with Wild Spaces Public Places. Just because we have some new faces on the commission. And that's all I have for my presentation today.
Very good. Thank you so much.
There we go. Okay.
And I do have one more. Commissioner Willits.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This may not be exactly Wild Spaces Public Places, but it's a parks question with county in the room and with Manager Cunningham in the room as well. The GRU Recharge Park proposal, idea, beginnings, imaginations, how would potentially Representative Clemens' local bill affect our ability to make decisions, the city's ability to make decisions to go forward with that recharge park? I believe it's on, is it on Parker Road?
So, Mr. Mayor, Chair, I think it's a difficult question to answer. So I think the quickest answer is that we're not sure. So bill language is pretty simple at this point. I believe we just got new revised bill language that will be addressed on Wednesday at a committee meeting. At this point, I don't know what the impact of that would be. The hope would be there would not be an impact with us being able to continue to move forward with the project.
Because we some funding is already, that was going to be, there were some grants for that, correct?
Correct. So we have basically 50% of everything we've done so far, whether it's the purchase of the property, the design, and the construction costs are all 50% funded through the state, through the Water Management District, Swanee River Water Management District.
If GRU is no longer under the authority of the city commission, but would be under the authority of appointees of the governor, could this project be stopped?
So I don't think the project could be stopped, but whether the funding could be impacted, I just don't know. I just don't know at this point.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cunningham.
You're welcome. Thank you. Commissioner Cornell.
This one, you have Northeast 31st Avenue Trail from Northeast 15th Street to Waldo Road, and then Bulwer Springs to Southeast 8th Avenue. Is that a joint county-city corridor, or talk to me about that? What is that?
These are just some concepts I think we're going to discuss later in May of some projects that I thought, would have some potential city, county, or I guess county-wide benefit. So, again.
I think so too. I like that. Yeah, that corridor we've been talking a lot about, and I know the Kincaid Loop is on our list. So to the extent we can have some coordination between staffs, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you so much. Betsy, before you leave, and perhaps this is more like a generalized statement with regards to trails, however. I brought this up probably a few commission meetings ago in my travels down Waldo Road. The trail section that comes across Waldo Road that's right near Old Alavec Shopping Center is so frightening to me. And part of the reason is because I think, and my mother reminds me how bad I am with directions. I need the beach somewhere in the city to know where the east is. But the whole point is when you are traveling down Waldo Road, there, and you get to that portion of the trail, you're coming around a corner that if you're even traveling at a legal speed, it makes it really hard to anticipate when people are going to press the light to cross the road. It's always frightening to me. It's a heavily traveled road, traversed with a lot of 18-wheelers, a lot of traffic, period. And I don't think it's the only one, but because I see that one really, really commonly, I wanted to bring this up to all of us because I wonder what we need to begin to conceptualize in terms of safety. I am no engineer. I don't know if these need to be raised. I don't know if we need to start with signage a lot further down the street that begins to slow traffic. But I have seen some very frightening situations that could have been tragic. I don't believe enough people are aware of where these trails come into or meet the streets. And even if they were, I don't think enough protections currently exist for people that are trying to traverse and cross these heavily traveled streets. Can you speak to me a little bit about that? But I am throwing it out there to say that as we continue to conceptualize the trails, maybe overpasses, so to speak, and I'm sure that's expensive, but when you're talking about public safety, I think you have to consider things like that. It's literally frightening and devastating. I was in a procession one day where a portion of the procession stopped and another portion was not stopping. And it got frightening. There was a family trying to cross the road with children on bicycles. What can we do?
Mr. Mayor, Madam Chair, Phil Mann, Special Advisor to City Manager. So when we were studying West University Avenue and the traffic issues there, we also asked the DOT to look at that crossing. There are improvements scheduled for that crossing. I was not prepared to answer that question today, so we can get both commissions that information as to exactly what the upgrade is going to be. It's some sort of more effective traffic signal. I'm not sure if it's a full signal or what they call a hawk, but we'll get you that information and get it to both commissions.
Thank you very much. I'd greatly appreciate it. Like I said, I see it quite often where it's just frightening for everyone involved, not just people in cars, but the people who are trying to cross the street as well.
And if I understood correctly, that project is in design and it won't be too much longer for construction. So
Thank you.
we'll get you all the information.
Thank you very much, Phil. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'm going to have to tag out here.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. It looks as though we don't have any more lights, so no one else from the commissions have anything else to say. Thank you again, Betsy, and thank you, Phil.
The county has, I think, a presentation yet.
Does the county have a presentation? Okay, wonderful. Who's coming to present? Thank you so much.
Jason Maurer, Parks and Open Space, Alachua County Director. Today I was just going to give a quick little overview of our wild spaces, public places. I just was going to bring a map up. There we go. So we recently finished our master plan, and this is the vision map that we have out of that master plan. So our wild spaces, as Mr. Cornell had already stated, we were increased to 20% this time. So we're expecting about $40 million over a 10-year period. So this is kind of going to be our guiding principle of where we need to be addressing some of our gaps in services. Some of the priorities that we have right now are similar to what the city's been doing, upgrading current parks and facilities. We're putting in shade structures, replacing playgrounds, accessibility issues. So that's going to be one of our major targets here moving forward. Some of in the GRU wetland we brought up, I believe we have our kickoff meeting May 1st. So as of now, we're still planning to move forward. We're very excited about that partnership program, and that park, it could be phenomenal. So hopefully that does continue to move forward. Basically, we're excited to have any opportunity to partner. So again, Betsy and everyone, we'd love to get together and see what opportunities there are to partner on some projects. So my biggest thing is, do you have any questions for us?
Commissioner Sacco.
Thank you. Just briefly, can we get this email to us? I don't think it's in our backup currently, and I
Yes,
can't see from here.
absolutely. We can email you that.
Thank you so much.
We can just send them the plan.
Or that.
Yeah, we can send you the whole plan. It's 180 pages, yeah, so we'll
I
get
mean,
it
I'll
to you.
take it. I just really want this. Can we put this as a separate page?
I have it separate. I can send that independently, yes.
I'll take both. Dang it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, I'm going to turn it over to Andy.
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem and Madam Chair. Andy Chrisman, I'm the Program Manager for the Alachua County Land Conservation Program, also known as the Alachua County Forever Program. So I'll just briefly give you an update on the next 10-year strategy for the land conservation side of the program. We're anticipating $194 million prior to the $6 million partnership project funding for both the conservation lands and the parks program. And as Commissioner Cornell and Jason mentioned, the County Commission did identify a 80-20 split, with 80% of the county funding going to the conservation land program and an increase in the parks funding to 20% in this 10-year surtax cycle. In case you're not familiar with it, the mission of the Alachua County Forever program is to acquire, improve, and manage environmentally significant lands that protect water resources, wildlife habitat, and natural areas suitable for resource-based recreation. Over the program's 23-year lifespan to date, we have acquired 32,500, actually this is, if I can use the right button, actually up to 33,000 acres with the first acquisitions of calendar year 2023. And the 2016 to 2022 funding cycle, the properties shown in red are the properties acquired in that funding cycle. The darker green properties were acquired prior. Let's see. Over that funding cycle, the average per acre acquisition cost is a little bit over $3,000 an acre, and that includes due diligence as well as the land costs. And there were 13,000 acres acquired in that 6 years of the original 8-year funding cycle. On our active acquisition list, which is maintained and managed within our office at the direction of the County Commission, there are currently 40,000 acres, properties ranging from quite large to relatively small throughout the county, and those are all nominated by individuals within the county, and they do not go onto the active acquisition list without review by our Citizen Advisory Board, the Land Conservation Board, and also with willing landowner partnership. So the primary message that I have today is just the update on what our land acquisition strategy is within the county for this next 10-year funding cycle. We are working on a corridor-based strategy, and that's in alignment with the state-level land acquisition and land conservation recommendations to meet the needs for both local-level protection but also state-level wildlife corridor establishment. Our primary focus throughout the program history has been the Santa Fe River corridor. On this map, the orange areas are the areas that fall within the priority parts of the Florida Ecological Greenways Network, which is what has been also utilized for the highest ranked properties within that network to establish the Florida Wildlife Corridor by the legislature. Along the Santa Fe River, you can see the darker green properties are the acquisitions that have been completed, and the lighter green properties are acquisitions completed by partners. The next corridor on the east side of the county is the Florida Wildlife Corridor, and this connects to a conservation land corridor going north and south from the Ocala National Forest to the Osceola National Forest through Camp Blanding, and is part of a statewide network. And the final priority corridor is what we call the Southern Corridor, connecting generally the Bar Hammock Preserve, Paynes Prairie Preserve State Park area to the Watermelon Pond conservation areas, both within the county and extending south to Goethe State Forest and eventually to the Gulf. And then finally, we are adding a component to the program in the surtax funding cycle that is going to receive greater emphasis than it has in the past, which is an agricultural land protection program that will be implemented to support and strengthen the existing corridors that are already underway within the county, where willing agricultural landowners are present and available to nominate their lands for what would be most likely a conservation easement, where they would retain ownership but continue their agricultural practices while essentially selling their development rights. We also anticipate some greater emphasis on land protection on the west side of the county through this agricultural land protection program, which will yield additional benefits of water quality protections and water recharge protections due to the highly permeable soils on that part of the county, and support local food production. And I don't think you really want to see the BOCC motions, but essentially They were very wordy. The board did move to, as Jason and Commissioner Cornell mentioned, to identify an 80-20 funding split, also to authorize use of some of the funding for infrastructure associated with an office and field support facility for our land conservation program, and to support at some level operation and maintenance funding for both the parks and conservation lands programs, which may include funding of some personnel costs as well for those programs. And you can see the estimated funding levels that will generate over both a 1-year and 10-year period.
Thank you so much. If we could pause, I do see a light. Commissioner Cornell, is that you or is that Commissioner Book? Commissioner Cornell, you want to wait? No problem.
We're actually done.
Perfect timing, perfect.
Really, thank you, Andy. I'm glad to see you're doing well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you suffered through the last couple of board meetings. So, commissioners, up on the screen shows you kind of what we've allocated. I will tell you that our master plan is 80+ million. So it is not funded, but it is now on its way. One of the things that we did discuss last week and we are looking at is something that you all are probably dealing with as well. We know we used to say 1,000 people a day are moving to Florida. Well, Tom Kay says it's 1,142, which is about 15% more than what we think. So we know that there is a lot of people moving to the state. The last census showed the greatest increase in your city, as you all know. And so we're actually looking at adjusting and modifying our impact fees, our park impact fees, because we have concluded that if we don't do that, the existing folks will be paying for that growth, and we just don't think that's right. We think that we have to, we know that growth should at least attempt to pay for itself, and parks and conservation lands are a big part of that. It's a big part of the citizens of Gainesville for when they travel outside of the city to go to these places. And so we are looking at that. I just wanted to let you all know that in case, I don't know where you all with regards to impact fees are, but it's a funding source that we've recognized. We don't want our existing citizens to pay for all of the impacts to the 1,142 people that are moving here every day into Florida, and certainly Gainesville's getting their fair share of that. So just want to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Are there any other lights? Commissioner, absolutely. Commissioner Eastman.
Well, first, this is very exciting work. I love seeing our county. I didn't realize that we were getting so involved in the Ocala-Osceola Wildlife Corridor, and I don't know, we're so focused on what we're doing within the city of Gainesville that it's quite exciting to see it all laid out on a map. I was curious to hear a little bit more about what we're doing on agricultural lands and what the long-term goals are of that program.
Yes, thank you for that question. So if I hopefully can do this correctly, there we go. The Alachua County Forever program, the county's land conservation program, currently holds 15 conservation easements within the county. Those are a mixture of agricultural land protection and just pure sale of development rights by interested landowners. Moving forward, we are looking to complete a study of the county to identify the most significant soils and most significant farmland and crop areas to protect. So the Conservation Lands Program, at its origin in the year 2000, underwent a series of studies like this that established the framework for which our subsequent 23 years of successful land conservation acquisitions was built. And we're looking to establish a similar foundation for the agricultural land protection program. However, as a part of that, we are continuing to receive nominations primarily from the landowners for agricultural lands as conservation easements. Those can be routed through the Alachua County Forever program through the traditional routes that those properties have gone through already. But we are also starting to kind of create a subset of acquisition lists where the ones that truly are agricultural land protection will be shunted through this agricultural land protection program that's under development. We don't have specific limitation for crops, of certain types. We don't, really the framework for this program is being developed as we speak, but the intent is that we gain some of the benefits that can be had for the conservation land's goals, the water quality and water recharge protection. There are some wildlife habitat protection values to be had on these lands as well, while coupling with protection of that agricultural footprint, so that we're not seeing the future with the additional 15% and over 1,100 people moving into the county. So we're not seeing that additional footprint all become houses. Currently, the area on the west side of the county is so highly parcelized that it doesn't have an automatic match for the scoring criteria and the values that are embedded into the Alachua County Forever program. Properties do get nominated on that side of the county, but they're often much smaller and less connected. The agricultural land protection program will open the door to protections on some of those properties for different values. So a combination of existing and different values.
Great. Well, yeah, that's very exciting. Partially, as Commissioner Cornell mentioned, how many you said? What 1,104 people?
1,142.
All right, I'll try to remember that because that's a good number.
14%, more than what you've always thought.
One of the things that's always been a part of the long-term goals of Alachua County since long before probably I was even on this earth was the idea of creating an emerald necklace and stopping suburban sprawl from coming outside further. And part of that, as we can see from our east side, is that wild lands that are out there. But agricultural land easements are a really important way as well to ensure that you're kind of slowing that growth. And I understand and as we continue to move, as our population is moving west, I think that would be very important moving forward. And of course, there's a large pot of federal money that's out there as it relates to agricultural easements. So I'm excited to see the county getting involved in that, and I'm excited to see you guys looking at that because I would love to see a lot of that land be as protected as possible so that we can begin building in instead of building out. So thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Eastman. I think we have Commissioner Book. Is that Willits? Oh, okay, Willits.
And then me.
Thank you. I had a question about the agricultural land protection program, because you mentioned in the western part of the county and highly parcelized. Is there a minimum size limit on that? I wonder about, are we talking about very large farm areas that could be protected, or will there be some opportunity for piece by piece?
Excellent question, thank you. So at this point, again, the foundation for this program, the framework, is still being developed. However, I will say that there is a sort of operational practicality that comes with establishment of conservation easements and what you could call bang for your buck in terms of staff time and dollars in being able to develop the conservation easement deed and do the work that actually creates the easement and acquire the easement. So it is likely that there will be a lower end acreage cutoff. That acreage cutoff has not been established yet. So I could anticipate that it might be 40 acres, but again, that's not been established at this point. We are looking at ways to partner with existing state, federal, and other programs that might open the door to funding easements on some of these other differently sized properties. But we're at the early stages right now. So at this point, easements that are moving forward within our land acquisition program are ones that are strong matches to the existing mission of the Alachua County Forever program. Easements that will be incorporated directly into the agricultural land protection program will be ones that have a potentially more broad range of sizes and products and condition than the ones that we can say are a match for Alachua County Forever. And I can just point out one example. This property right here is the Hitchcock Conservation Easement. It's over 2,000 acres in size. It unites the county's Mill Creek Preserve with conservation land on the Santa Fe River and did protect a portion of the Santa Fe River frontage. And so that was a really easy match for the Alachua County Forever program. But, you know, some of these other maybe smaller standalone conservation easements that we do already have would be better matches. Potentially properties that are smaller like that would be better matches for this agricultural land protection program. However, you know, the framework for that is still being developed right now.
Thank you. I conclude.
Thank you, Commissioner Willetts. Chair Prezia.
Sure, thank you. I guess first I want to say thank you. I every time I see this presentation, that gives me goosebumps. It makes me so happy to see. I mean, that we're, you know, I think the current number is somewhere around 27% of our county has been protected, and you know, we've heard numbers of 30 by 30. You know, we need to protect 30% of our land base, you know, by 2030. Now, there's estimates up there for some people around climate change issues that are saying as much as 50% of land base needs to be protected in order for us to be able to meet goals for climate change, carbon sequestration, and things like that. So, you know, it's impressive to see that we're well on our way, and I think the partnership that we have with the municipalities doing the active recreation primarily, and us doing the conservation lands primarily, but still having that rec focus is really critical, and I'm really proud of it, and I'm excited about the ag lands effort as well. As you know, it's something I've been actively kind of advocating for. I do think though that it's important to note that highly parcelized piece is important, right? Those pieces are much smaller and much more fractured ownership, and so it's going to be more challenging to accomplish those goals that we have of any kind of emerald necklace on that side of the county, without also thinking about economic development and investment in infrastructure for agriculture. If we don't have the infrastructure and the facilities that are necessary for those farmers to make a living, and for them to see long-term viability in agriculture as a living, then their interest in selling their development rights to us to protect our recharge areas and our water quality is going to be pretty slim. And so that's one of the main reasons why things like meat processing and the food hub that we're attaching to the grocery store are so critical to invest in as local governments, because we have to have that economic development component paired with land conservation. And on top of that, we need to be pairing ways in which we're beginning to provide for young people to get to agriculture as a career, which is why I love what the school board is doing with Santa Fe High School and what we've done through our extension service with 4-H. And what people like the Cultural Arts Coalition have done with their summer sling program, where they take, with their youth ambassadors program, where they take students to farms and really get them engaged in what the future of agriculture might look like. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Prezia. Thank you. All right, no more lights? All right. Omi, next item. Thank you very much. City Commissioners, are there any comments?
Nope. Ours was city, sorry, you said city.
That's okay.
Commissioners. That's okay.
That's okay. Did you want to go first? You
No,
certainly may.
ours has public comment first, so, and then,
Oh, okay.
but I don't know,
Okay.
you guys do public comment last?
Well,
We
we have.
don't have public comment at our joint meetings.
Okay, so we do, so perhaps we can
We
just, do
can.
you mind if we open it up to
I
public
certainly
comment
do
briefly?
not.
And then,
We
okay,
can certainly open it up to public comment as far
Great.
as I'm concerned.
awesome,
Okay,
thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah, that would be great.
Are there any comments from the public? Public comment at this time?
I don't think we have any.
This looks like all staff, doesn't it?
It does, we got staff, Mayor Ward called it staff-a-palooza. Okay, thank you for doing that, I appreciate it.
Absolutely, you are quite welcome. And so now, Omi, I believe that moves us to member comment. City Commissioners, any member comment? I have a comment. Am I seeing a light here from the county?
Yes,
Okay.
I had a quick question. We've been getting a lot of emails about public safety in Gainesville, which is not our purview, but we keep getting the emails, and I'm just wondering what I can tell the folks that are emailing and texting and calling me. I want to be able to give them a good substantive answer rather than just forwarding all the information to you guys.
Sure. Is there
anything
something
you can
specific?
share?
Is there something specific that-
Shootings downtown has been the biggest thing, and in the Duval neighborhood.
Okay. Is the city manager, I see that she has stepped out, maybe Andrew can step forward and try to give the commissioner a level of response?
I'll do my best. I do believe that the mayor and the city manager, chief of police met today to discuss it. We'll be happy to follow up maybe with a letter or memo to the county commission.
I
detailing
appreciate
our efforts.
I appreciate that,
Sure.
Andrew. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the county?
Yes, here's my chance to say thank you. So thank you all for hosting. It's been a great meeting. I appreciate the work. I really, though, want to speak to both of our staffs. When they work together, great things happen in this community, and I just want to express my gratitude to the city staff. I know many of you individually and collectively, I know you are working hard with what I think is the best county staff in the state. And so I just wanted to say that publicly and tell you all thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Oh, I see. Let me cut some of these lights off over here.
One of those for me. I turned on mine on purpose.
Y'all can have that lighting system.
I know. I'm with you on the lighting. We have similar issues across the street, apparently.
Ours is one button. You only press one button.
It's okay. It'll be all right. So let's just absolutely, Chair Prezi, I believe I saw your light.
Thank you.
Yes.
No, I just also wanted to say thanks for having us and for a great meeting and a big thanks to our staff. I love the joint housing collaborative meetings. I think that's going to help us a lot as we continue to move forward with things like the infrastructure surtax and the housing trust fund. And so I'm excited about that collaboration. And I hope that wild spaces, the parks, now that we have a parks master plan and you all have a parks master plan, we can see where we've already asked our team to sort of map where there's overlap, opportunity for synergy, both with that and with our trails and pedestrian and bikes master plan that we're getting ready to undertake. So I think as we move in that direction, we'll have a lot more opportunity for collaboration, and it's exciting times. Lots of great resources to pour into things our community needs the most.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair Prezi. Okay. I have a comment. And my comment is also to say thank you to everyone who's here today. Thank you for all of the hard work. I really enjoyed the housing presentation that came jointly. That was something that I had put down on the table and asked for both sides of the street to work together on. And I think that given the response from both sides of the house, we really all learned something today. So I greatly appreciate that. Thank you, thank you. Then I have a question. And I brought this up, I believe, probably at our last joint meeting, and it has to do with a project that the county is doing that's very important to me, very important to a lot of people. I don't know that anyone on the dais may be able to answer this question, but perhaps our deputy and assistant city manager may be able to help with the Heritage Trail. I have a couple of questions about that, if you wouldn't mind. And this is the County Heritage Trail, actually, Andrew.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. Yeah. and I'm glad.
Andrew, can you come back up, please?
But I'm almost glad that Andrew stepped forward because part of me feels like, while I'm certainly not trying to add any work to anyone's plate, nothing to anyone's plate, I think that the city, who's been working on our Heritage Trail for quite some time, is probably a really good example of some things to do and probably some things not to do. The reason I am bringing this forward to you today is because I've been receiving emails, and I'm very much appreciative to be folded into what is in development as far as the Heritage Trail is concerned. But I have some questions, Deputy Smart, because I think that a lot of things are very important here. In one of the emails that I got, there were a list of places that are being suggested for the Heritage Trail. And I don't want to belabor this, but I feel like it's important to make these points. A lot of the points are already on the city's Heritage Trail. And so I was wondering what the context area is or what the scope of the Heritage Trail is. I don't want you to even answer this. I'm going to just throw several things out because we don't have to make this a long exchange. I will use a point or a place that I happen to know personally because of my family's involvement with it. There were some things that were just inaccurate. And so several questions arise, okay, about who is doing the work, how the work is going to be done. You heard me say in the last meeting, who will own the work, where will the work be housed? And I'll sum every question that I could go into greater detail, but will not today, up with. I think it's really important because the city experienced similar issues as well. And they rolled back now to a place where they're back to the drawing board, realizing that they need to bring in experts to do the work because it is not what they do. There are experts who do this work. And I guess my question to you as well as members of the county commission is there a willingness, an appetite to bring in some experts to lead this effort? Because it is concerning to me when I look consistently and I see things like what I've been seeing recently. And there are wonderful people involved in the project, but I also know that there are some individuals who are not doing the research, who are not doing the work. It's concerning when I look at a piece that says, my grandfather is dead. He's 97, but he's not dead. He's still here. So when this is out in the public sphere or this is included in emails, we want to make sure that what we're putting out as historic information, stuff that people will see, is accurate. So first question is, where is this coming from? But the more important question is, how are we going to fix this moving forward? I will say again that there are experts that build trails. And that was one of the things that I said to the GCRA, who's working on that project. There are professionals that do this. Is there any appetite for the county to look into bringing experts into this process? Because I think it's important, it's critical that we really look at how this gets rolled out.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Pro Tem, certainly that's an important question. I don't have an answer for you right now, but we'll certainly get you an answer. The work on the trail is the African American Heritage Trail, basically, and the county started on as a result of all the events and locations that have been identified through the Alachua County Community Remembrance Project. Soil collections, historical markers, a number of and cemeteries, historical cemeteries that are out there that are just lend themselves naturally to a historical trail. The effort is started by volunteers primarily, and with some additional help from staff and some additional help from University of Florida, the Museum Studies Group. But we are certainly entertained as this effort grows. It really is just a grassroots effort that is starting to grow. And so as it grows, then certainly we look at the whether or not we could and should bring in professional help. Right now, there's been no budget allocated for that, but that's something we can certainly look at. So I appreciate the question and your comments.
Thank you very much. Let me get Commissioner Prezia, or Chair Prezia.
Thank you. So I hear you. I heard you when you brought this up the last time, and I started to sort of have a bit of conversations with staff generally about, in particular, about intellectual property and about making sure that any information that we were gathering, that we were protecting the intellectual property of the people who were sharing that information. And that was really helpful information that you shared the first time around. And I appreciate this step in the conversation. I'll say I, for one, would be interested in the idea of professionalizing this process. I think that it deserves it. It's outgrowth of our Truth and Reconciliation process, and it only seems right that we would give it that kind of respect and consideration. I'll say two things. One, I also think this is a big boon to potential visitors to our community to learn more about our community, and so perhaps our tourism tax is a good source of resources and funding to be able to support some of that work. I will say though that I want to be sure our truth and reconciliation process and the community remembrance project have been volunteer based, and there's been a lot of dedication and a lot of commitment, a lot of time and energy and effort that's been put in to that work. And I do not want to usurp or undermine the people who have dedicated an insane amount of their lives to making that effort possible. So I would want to bring in experts and professionals that would respect that and that would work with those people in our community, both whose truth this is and whose stories they are, but also the people who have already dedicated so much time and energy to this idea and this concept, and that they wouldn't come in and just take over, that it would be a collaborative effort with our community and with the city, and that we could do something that would be a joint kind of overall effort.
Really glad you said that. It's really important to me as somebody who's participated in this from both sides that the community always be centered in this. So making sure that they are front row, center, helping to lead this is incredibly important. And you're absolutely right. I want to make sure that anyone who has given selflessly and tirelessly of their energy to this project, please know that I appreciate you. I just want to help you make this the best that it can possibly be. Thank you for everything that you've done.
And EJI may be able to help us. I mean, EJI has helped us
For
with a lot of this work. And I know that they have a whole museum dedicated to this effort. And so they may, in fact, be a great collaborator to help support us in that next step.
Absolutely. And I don't think that you would find a problem, at least with a conversation with the Gainesville Community Reinvestment Agency to kind of talk about lessons learned or some information that they may have, resources that they may have as they've moved along the way. Of course, our trail is still in development as well, but I think they have a lot that they can share at this point. So maybe you don't have to go that far just yet. Talk to us, and then we can definitely proceed. I see another light here. That is...
That's me, Madam Chair.
That's you? Thank you, Commissioner Chestnut.
I just wanted to add 2 cents to this.
Yes.
In terms of the Truth and Reconciliation and to the Community Remembrance Project, it was a subcommittee that talked about the African American Trail and all of that stuff, but it was also supposed to incorporate the city of Gainesville also. But we were worried about in the county in terms of a lot of the rural areas and stuff like that, and getting the people involved. And so I think the university stepped up to the plate and offered to help with that. And I know that the Gainesville subcommittee of the Truth and Reconciliation were heavily involved in that, and they were spearheading pretty much that effort. But we welcome everybody to be a part of it because it's a Truth and Reconciliation, and we want the truth to be told about the history of African Americans in Alachua County and in the city of Gainesville. So it's very important, and so each month we meet the fourth Wednesday of the month to talk about these areas, and we get updates from the subcommittees to tell us where they are and what they're doing. And the last couple of times we did not get a real good update in terms of how the trail was going, but we do know that the university is involved and that there are members of part of the Truth and Reconciliation and the Community Remembrance Project that are involved in that process. So each month we get an update, and so far we'll probably talk about that in our next meeting, about maybe cooperating with the city in terms of some of their shortfalls and stuff they had in terms of trying to do a heritage trail. So we'll make sure that that happens. But I just wanted to add those 2 cents that, it's volunteer based. People have taking their time and their commitment to it, and and my hat goes off to them because it's not easy work. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Cornell?
You kept knocking my life off. So I love these meetings because our staff gets to hear, they get to hear our words, they get to hear our hearts. And repeat your question again.
Well, the question was, do you mind professionalizing this? Is there an appetite to bring in some experts to help lead the project?
I do not mind, and the answer is yes, I am open to that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And once again, I want everybody who's participated in this to hear that this is in no way any type of disrespect for your time, your energy, or your efforts. It is wanting to bring in a level of support for your passion for this and wanted to bring in people who literally do this for a living to help make this trail something that is memorable, something that is exciting, and something that honors the people whose story that it is trying to tell. So thank you very much, County Commissioners, for that, for your cooperation. Thank you, City Commissioners, for your cooperation today. And I believe that we are adjourned. I have Eastman.
Sorry.
Oh, Commissioner Eastman, you snuck in there.
No,
Don't be
sorry.
talking about
I was trying to press this button over here. I'm sorry. I just wanted to jump in here because I do really appreciate hearing all of the discussion about collaboration and us working together as as two bodies on a lot of these great things, like on housing, like on environmental protection. I do think it's sort of an elephant in the room that I just wanted to address really quickly, which is that we are going to need that collaboration a lot more in the near future. We are, despite what some people say, I'd say we were running a very tight ship here at the City of Gainesville. We had the third lowest tax rate in Alachua County. We've been consistently dropping our general funds transfer at GRU to being one of the lowest in the state of Florida, the lowest that it's been in decades and decades. But we're now looking at $18.7 million in cuts is what we just agreed to, which is 3 times the cuts that we made during the Great Recession. We are looking at big cuts across the board at various services that will be offset slightly by millage increases, but we're about to be going through this, and we're also looking at very massive changes to the way that we govern our city as it relates to GRU, where we're looking at, so I'm just really looking forward to working with you guys. I think we might be calling on you more in the future to figure out how we can collaborate more, because I think there's going to be a lot more headwinds for our city in the near future, and so I'm really looking forward to this collaboration as we go forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any more? All right. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.